The MC reveals his past, an orphan hunting monsters for cash, only to discover he's the kingdom's top A-rank adventurer. Hero and others rode the platform, a toothy monster's severed head leading, surrounded by cheering crowds, a huge arch behind them. Aldred waved as the crowd cheered his name. Lowering his hand, he knew his days of hunger and struggle were finally over. Aldred entered a spacious room, sweetly smiling at people around him. Several round tables filled it. Aldred's smile vanished as he sighed at the floor, the nearby crowd staring back in pure embarrassment. At 27, Aldred wondered how much longer he could hunt. Now in the capital, strange figures were closing in, their faces haunting his thoughts. Aldred sat on the field, gazing up. A grand mansion loomed behind him. Flowers bloomed as a tailwind lifted their petals. Darkness consumed the mansion, but city buildings sparked to life. Aldred sat at a table with 3 others, mugs and a candle between them, when one man shouted he wanted to disband the team. The dark-haired man closed his eyes, knowing this outcome. The blonde man gasped. The girl blushed, realizing it might be true. Leaning in, the man revealed the leader made the call. He was nearly 30, unlike the younger guys. Aldred looked away, certain they already had a plan. The blonde grinned, announcing he joined the Royal Knights and leaving the group stunned. The dark-haired guy announced his trip, while the blushing girl revealed her invite to study at the Royal Magic School. His friends asked Aldred what's next. Aldred smiled, wanting a peaceful life in Norland. His friends stared at their leader, shocked. They argued over the plan, making Aldred regret speaking up, but the blonde guy had his back. Aldred closed his eyes, admitting his long dream to see a flower field again. The guys were shocked. They'd never seen this side of Aldred. Aldred sipped his drink as the dark-haired man pressed for his plans. Setting the mug down, Aldred lowered his head and declared he was done. From now on, he'd live carefree. The guys backed Aldred and slammed their wooden mugs together. Aldred rode in his cart, gazing out. He disbanded his team for silence, certain it was the right move for the long road ahead. A month passed, Aldred rode the wagon roof. It stopped, someone announced their arrival. Aldred opened his eyes, stood up, and looked around. Aldred spotted a small settlement, grape plantations ringing its outskirts. He recognized the name, Norland. Surprised, he touched the grapes. Aisha, a girl in a hat, approached Aldred as guys debated his past. The guys walked through a rural village, vibrant with flowering plants. Aldred smiled, soaking it all in. Meeting crop-harvesting locals, Aisha announced they'd reached the elder's house, where Aldred smiled at the flowers. Aldred smiled, saying he'd been here 9 years ago, but the flowers were still beautiful. Aisha entered the house, and a girl met them inside. A blonde woman greets them, shocked Aisha actually brought a guest. Hands on her belt, Aisha announces he's from Avalon and wants to stay. The woman pointed them to her husband, while Aisha geared up to leave. Aldred thanked her as she warned the chief about their guest from Avalon. Men held books declaring him an elder. Albus wondered why Aldred arrived. Aldred blushed, saying he loved this place's beauty last time. Albus smiled, saying other villagers came for the same reason. The blonde woman chatted. Aldred blushed, smelling the tea. Apple mint tea sat on the table. He sipped, calling it very relaxing. The couple smiled, glad Aldred finally loosened up. He blushed as Albus told him to stop being shy and just be himself. Aldred cheered and the couple laughed. Albus let him stay for now, but Aldred suddenly bowed his head, making the woman burst out laughing. Albus, hands on the table, said Aldred's plans were far from lunch. Aldred blushed in thought. Aldred hit the street, looked ahead and said, "Finally, I'm back." Petals swirled around Aldred as he gazed at the flower field, tears falling. Stunned, Aldred nervously wiped tears with his sleeve as petals swirled and plants bloomed. His face reddened. A flower petal lay in his hand. Aldred crossed the field, remembering the color-changing flowers but forgetting who told him. Suddenly, he spotted the girl. The blonde girl with a flower ornament sensed someone and spun around to find Aldred. The girl sat among flowers, clutching a bouquet. Aldred wondered who she was. Sweat beaded on Aldred's face. He gaped at the girl, who flushed crimson. Aldred stared, timidly greeting the girl. She blushed deeper, embarrassed, clutching a bouquet of flowers, then fussed, making odd noises. The girl quickly greeted Aldred, then fled. Aldred, surprised, wondered if he looked so scary. Night fell and stars appeared as Aldred entered Aldus's house, announcing his return. Aldred blushes as a blonde woman smiles at him. Having someone home feels right. Albus sets the table while they discuss the beautiful flower field. Actually, let's make it even more. Aldred sat at the table, blushing as Alba called the place magical. Lying on the cool grass felt incredible, and the residents loved relaxing there. Albus blushed as Fiona recalled their meeting and proposal under that tree. He begged her to stop and told Aldred to meet their daughter. Aldred blushed at the blonde girl next to Albus, who introduced her as Flora, Aldred's new village mate, the girl clutching a handkerchief, her face flushed. Flora called Aldred's name, and Albus realized they'd already met. Aldred explained their encounter under a field tree while Fiona chuckled. Aldred looked confused. Aldous announced Aldred would stay, Flora would care for him. Flora hesitated, then bolted. Aldous apologized for his daughter. Aldred scratched his neck, feeling awkward after Flora bolted from shyness. Everyone gathered around a massive spread. Aldous declared a feast, while Fiona noted it was to welcome their new guest. Albus smiled, presenting a 10-year-old drink from Aisha's garden grapes. He poured it, and Flora eyed the filling glass, confused. The guys toasted the new villager. Aldred loved the drink, and the whole group celebrated over plates of cheese. Flora ate her food, then glanced at Aldred. He grinned. The cheese and bread tasted amazing. Aldred grabbed a boat and shoveled food in, quickly emptying the table. Girls stared surprised, as Aldred declared the amazing food could earn them money. Fiona praised Flora for her dishes. Flora blushed, thanking the guys. Aldred kept eating, until a weird noise made everyone stare at Flora in shock. Embarrassed, Flora teared up and offered more, but Aldred just handed her the plate. Flora blushed, closed her eyes, and mentioned a supplement as she handed Aldred a full plate. Aldred saw Flora finally open up and become friends. He hoped she wouldn't run next time. Night fell as stars filled the sky. Next day, guys visited Aldred. Items lay nearby, girls held baskets. Albus offered Aldred an open invitation, and Aldred thanked him. Albus eyed Aldred, wondering if he had skills or sought work. Aldred, eyeing the flowers, just wanted quests. Aldred wanted to hunt. Albus knew he'd be useful. Their village lacked hunters. Flora brought Aldred a home-cooked meal, and he thanked her. She looked down in shy silence, making Aldred realize just how sweet she was. Aldred and Albus walked through the village, discussing Aldred's future home in the west, near the flower field. Sunlight hit the vines. Albus let Aldred pick an empty house out west, and they ended up by the river. Aldred shyly rejected every house they visited. The guys reached another house deep in the woods. Aldred paused to think, then they moved on. The guys crossed the bridge. Aldred smiled at the fish while Aldi's headed for the last house. Guys entered the house, dusty and gloomy for the ladies. Aldred dropped his gear at the entrance. He spotted the box, smiling. The guys sat on the street outside the house, eating sandwiches. Aldred wanted to live there if a villager made furniture. Aldi's replied the man lived across the street. Albus points to the house, naming the master Toke. They'll visit tomorrow, so Aldred thanks him and they part ways. Aldred grabbed a broom and scrubbed the house until he was covered in grime. Aldred eyed the sparkling room. Tomorrow meant Toke's, but first a bath. He poured water from a bucket into a wooden box. Aldred snaps on 2 bracelets and thrusts his hand forward, summoning water from the magic sign. Magic flames boiled the water into steam. Trapped inside, a terrified Aldred screamed that this wasn't the plan. Aldred exited the tub, towel on shoulders, searching for clothes. Suddenly, Flora burst in from the street, dinner in hand. Aldred dropped his towel, stood naked before Flora. She raised her hands, tears streamed. Flora bolted from Aldred's house. He thought they were closer, but it's 1 step forward, 3 steps back. Vineyards ringed the village, backed by a deep forest under the high noon sun. Sunlight hit Aldred, waking him. He stood, it's morning. Sunlight hit the tiles of Aldred's small, 1-story house. Chimney and all, he finally had a place of his own. Aldred dressed, heading to Toke, his mind on yesterday's Flora incident where he'd hoped to get along, but it backfired. Aldred reached Toki's house, stepped onto the veranda past a table and chairs, then climbed the stairs. Aldred sat on a chair, howling at its beauty. Toku looked out the window, surprised a man was so amazed by an ordinary chair. Toku smiled and thanked Aldred for the praise. A stunned Aldred then followed as Toku invited him inside. Toku offered breakfast with fresh veggies, and Aldred stepped inside to join him. Aldred reached the table, eager for breakfast. He lay on it, finding it pleasant to the touch. The guys dug in while Toku shared the recipe, but Aldred just kept greedily stuffing his face. The room had a sink and stove. Toku worried Aldred hadn't eaten since last night, but Aldred calmed Toka. Plates and boats filled the table. Aldred almost shared his day with Flora but stopped. Toku started pressuring him. Toku demanded to tell yesterday's story, acting like a thug. After Toku blabbed about his affair with Flora, Aldred finally caved and started talking. Actually. Toku clapped, laughing that Flora saw him naked. Aldred blushed, lips tight. Toku wouldn't stop laughing. Aldred snapped at him to stop, already awkward with Flora and fearing more distance. Toku shot back, they barely spoke anyway. Aldred said it wasn't Toku's scary face. Toku just frowned deeper. The guys crashed at Tawaku's, then hit the workshop where Aldred needed basic household items. Actually, let's go even punchier. Planks lay by Aldred. Fixing his hair, Toku warned he was swamped with orders, but he'd still build. Toku offered the sofa for sale, but Aldred sat in a nearby chair, making Toku yell that it wasn't fixed yet. Aldred sat and grinned, claiming the chair for his bedroom while Toka stood aside. Tawaku pointed, offering to grab another chair from the warehouse for Aldred's visitors. Aldred realized how used to being alone he was. At Aldred's house, Toku slumped on the sofa, exhausted but determined to measure under the bed as Aldred handed him a drink. Grabbing his glass, Toku recalled Flora's story. Aldred called him childish, but Toku just kept laughing. Aldred set the glasses on the table and smiled, noting the furniture felt way more comfortable. Furniture spawned in, the guys debated the setup, and Toku relaxed on the couch. Toku smiled, promising to show you places for cozy home things. Aldred thanked Toka. Next day, Aldred and Aisha met. He revealed he lives next to Tokuku. Aisha wiped her face while the guys discussed the move, but someone was closing in. Flora stood behind Aisha. She and Aldred locked eyes in horror. Why was she there? Aldred blushed, head down, a Flora head behind Aisha. Aisha sighed, eyes closed. Aisha shoves Flora aside as the guys exchange awkward greetings. Aldred and Flora faced silently. Aldred saw Aisha's gloomy face. He closed his eyes, sensing Aisha knew everything. Then Aldred abruptly kneels before Flora. Aldred apologized for yesterday. Flora replied, "Not your fault." Then Flora bent, begging forgiveness. Flora clutched her red face as Aldred realized she wasn't blaming him. She was apologizing. Aisha coughed, getting his attention. She said she had work. The guys could go home. Aldred and Flora blushed hard as Aisha's suggestion stunned the guys. The guys walked the great plantation, passing a man leading a loaded horse. Flora wondered Aldred's plan. Aldred stepped forward. "I want to meet the village hunter." Flora replied, "Only 4 days, Aldred, why the rush?" Aldred and Flora caught up. He wanted to help villagers. Aldred laughed, promising plenty of meat soon. Girls approached, laughing loudly. The girls passed, and Aldred turned to ask why everyone dressed so brightly. Flora smiled, showing off flowers that bloom year-round, while the locals tried to match them. Arriving at Flora's, they ran into her father. Aldred praised his new furniture and asked to meet the village hunter. Aldred smiled at Flora, eager to work, so Flora's father offered to introduce him to the village hunter. Aldred donned a new suit, gloves appeared, and a bow with arrows on his back. He ditched his sword, time to move. Aldred saw a man with a short girl. Lawrence introduced himself as a village hunter, prompting Aldred to ask if they were father and daughter. They turned away in anger as she called Aldred wrong, an outrageous claim. Lawrence introduced his 12-year-old student Karina, who was furious Aldred ignored her hunter status. Aldred smiled, woman or man didn't matter, only top hunting skills. Karina smiled, agreeing to help the village. Lawrence told Karina she needed way more study to become a hunter, but she vowed to master it fast as 2 girls appeared nearby. Karina pointed at the mountain, their destination. Lawrence thanked Aldred for support. Aldred smiled. Lawrence looked like his father. Lawrence blushed, slapping Aldred's shoulder. Guys hiked a narrow path, trees surrounding them, mushrooms dotting roots. They discussed the village's perfect location. Aldred asked what fruits grow here. Karina listed them, and Lawrence wondered if he'd ever heard of them. Forest chatter, Aldred mentioned hearing of some. Lawrence stood, revealing the fruit. Aldred gasped, examining it in surprise. Lawrence shared fruit with Aldred. Chewing, Aldred remembered how overeating as a kid always caused him trouble. Karina perched on a fruit tree and handed Aldred an aloy, explaining that while the skin is tough, it's delicious inside. Karina complained the peel tasted bitter, but Lawrence laughed, calling it the best part. Through the forest, they hit mountains. Stopping at a bush, they spotted animal tracks. Lawrence crouched by fresh deer tracks while the crew listened closely. The guys plot the deer hunt on high alert, while Karina and Aldred scout the bushes. Aldred crushed a branch as Lawrence watched, a strange light suddenly erupting from his body. Crouched in the bushes, the guys spotted a deer grazing nearby and immediately planned their attack. Aldred grabbed his bow, aimed at the deer while Lawrence and Chris watched. He fired, hitting his mark. Arrow pierced the deer's head. It shrieked, blood gushing from its mouth, its cry echoing through the neighborhood. They checked the deer while Lawrence admitted Aldred's a better shot than him. Aldred blushed, but Karina insisted he's even better than her teacher. Tearing up, Lawrence yelled at Karina to shut up. She shot back that she'd join Aldred, so Lawrence grabbed her head and shook her. Back in the village, the guys hauled in a massive deer. Locals marveled at its size, as Lawrence credited Aldred's skills for the feast. Aldred introduced himself to the villagers, who joyfully greeted him. he thanked them. Aldred and villagers butchered meat, planning to divide it for residence, sale, and household use. He then went to Flora's. She opened the door. Flora blushed as she greeted Aldred. He sheepishly handed her the bundle, a gift for their kindness, and she invited him to stay. Flora invited Aldred for dinner. Blushing, he asked if it was okay, and she said yes. Aldred reached Toke's house, passing several wooden barrels. He pounded on the door, shouting to open up. He brought meat. Aldred opened the door, but Aisha blocked his path, greeting him with a scowl. Aisha explained she gave Tauka a chair to fix, while Aldred shared nuts with the kids. Toku gripped a stool, then glared at the girl, claiming his faulty chair nearly caused disaster. Holding the bar, he retorted, "Things need proper handling, not like Aisha." Aldred closed his eyes, blaming Aisha. Toku pointed to the warehouse, refusing her any more discounts. The workshop door slammed, and Toku's grumbling made Aldred laugh. Aldred unwrapped meat to settle Toku's debt and immediately started lecturing on how to cook it perfectly. Aisha suddenly appeared, hovered over meat, and declared it perfect with grape drink. The guys stared in surprise. A stool stood by the guys. They discussed Aisha's chair design. Aisha wondered if Aldred had a reward for her, then put her hand to her face and pondered. Dense forest surrounded Tuaku's house. Aisha suggested raiding nearby homes for venison, but a girl in a dress suddenly appeared in the doorway. Blushing, Aldred stammered, asking who she was. Aisha gave Aldred the food basket, revealing she doesn't always wear the same outfit. Aldred was shocked he didn't recognize her. Toku laughed, mocking Aisha until she snapped, "Shut up." Aisha held Takaka's ear as Flora appeared before the guys, basket in hand. They greeted Flora. Toku introduced himself with a frightening smile. Toku blushed as Guys explained his look. Flora blushed, laughing, introduced herself. Groceries hit the table as the guys assigned roles for the stew. 2 meats awaited. Toku gripped spices, ready to cook. Everyone agreed as Toku assigned roles. Aldred roasted, Aisha prepped meat, Flora handled the wine, and Toku took the veggies. A basket sat on one table, long looms on another. Aldred, vegetables in hand, praised Toku's amazing soup. Toku admitted he had secrets. Aldred and Aisha slice meat as Aisha threatens Toku and his mushrooms. Aldred fries veggies while the rest of the crew stays busy. Aisha closed her eyes, drooling, saying the smells were great. Toku held the cabbage, telling Aisha to control herself and cut meat. Aldred stirred vegetables in a pan. Flora stood smiling next to him. Flora saw Aldred having fun, and he agreed. Tak questioned his identity, but the girls were shocked when he revealed his past. Aldred took the meat, then smiled awkwardly when the girl said they were safe with him, a monster fighter. Aldred tossed meat in the pan, quitting the case and warning the guys to stop relying on him as they focused on cooking. Aldred and Flora shared smiles. Toku watched thoughtful Aisha. Guys fried and sliced meat, cooking veggies in pots. Aldred and Aisha set plates on the table. Flora and Toku stood by the kitchen tables. Aisha fed Aldred a piece of meat with her fork. Aisha raised a finger as Aldred enjoyed the meat. Toku sensed drama, but Aldred insisted they were fine. Aisha turns away with the meat, but Flora slams the plate down and smirks, telling Aldred he has sauce on his mouth. Aldred is left totally baffled. Aisha hurled insults, ignoring Aldred. Aldred stared, surprised. Smoke billowed from the chimney as the guys finished cooking. Guys sat down to a table piled with meat dishes, hovering and admiring each one. The guys discussed the extra meat while Flora and Aldred snacked. As the girls started fighting, Aldred watched in terror. Forks ready, Aldred gave the word, and the guys finally dug into the meat. Aldred's eyes closed, shaking with pleasure, as a girl praised the guys' cooking. Flora shut her eyes, hand over mouth, adding Aldred did great too. Aisha flushed, raising a finger in agreement. Toku eyed the meat, claiming her best. Toku said Aisha's steak was overcooked. She replied she was satisfied. Aldred supported Aisha. Flora suggested wine needed bread and salad. Toku ate. Aisha made a sandwich. Aldred repeated it was very tasty. Flora smiled. Aisha ate the soup, calling it good too. Guys ate, discussed recipes. Flora fed Aldred a berry. He sheepishly swallowed. Aldred's eyes shone, realizing these pico seeds added unique flavor. He thanked Flora, who, spoon in hand, stuck her tongue out. After eating, a tea set appears. Aldred praises Flora's brew. She thanks him, and the others savor every drop. Aisha asked Toku if she looked like a princess. The guys then discussed tea habits and daily plans, leaving several empty cups. Guys hit the street. Girls chased each other while boys planned their fishing trip. The group hit the river as Flora rested, debating Aisha's stamina before ditching their shoes on the shore. The guys dunked their heads to cool off. Aldred surfaced grinning, fixed his hair, and looked at Toku. Toku flushed when Aldred mocked his strange, wet hair. Girls dipped feet in the water, and Aisha mimicked Toku. Flora mocked Toku's weird hair. Offended, he slumped on a rock while she tried to cheer him up. Aisha laughed loudly, mimicking Toku when Toku splashed her with a water jet. Soaked, Aisha stared, confused. Aisha sprays Takaka, splashing Aldred. The guys furiously spray and argue. Aldred was dripping water. He looked ahead and saw Flora. Her face was red and she was stretching her hands towards the water. Drenched, Flora splashes Aldred while Tuwaku and Aisha drench each other. Drenched and flushed, Flora laughed while splashing water at Aldred. Aldred dunked his hands, ready to spray, then instantly froze and blushed. Flora, surprised, stared at her damp clothes, then screamed in loud embarrassment as the boy's shoes remained on the shore. Toku wrung his clothes, complaining Aisha's acting too bold for a non-couple, while a smiling Aldred brought him fresh gear. Toku dried his head while Aldred blushed at the girls on the log. Aisha scratched her head as Flora covered her soaked body. Aldred approached the girls, giving them towels. Aisha covered her head, looked away, and thanked him. Aisha praised Flora's legs as Aldred handed her a towel. Flora instantly covered herself, shouting Aisha's legs were prettier. Aldred blushed, staring ahead. Aldred screamed internally and handed Flora the towel. He couldn't stop staring at her legs as she shyly thanked him. Toku grabbed his rod to fish, while Aisha promised to catch up later. Aldred worried for the soaked Aisha, but she smiled it off on the rocky shore. The fish finally start biting. From the riverbank, Aldred brags about his sixth catch while Toku sulks with only 3, calling it unfair. Fish swarmed the water. The guys hauled them in from the massive, forest-lined river. Aldred bit again. Toku raged. He eyed the bucket of swimming fish, declaring they'd caught enough to feed the village. Aldred was holding a bucket and said that he had caught a lot of fish now. Toku was angry and didn't want to answer. The girls came up to the guys. They expected that the guys had already finished fishing. The girls praised Aldred's catch while Toku sulked, but suddenly his rod twitched and he yanked the line. Aldred and the girls cheered from the side as Toku yanked his rod and screamed. A big fish jumped out of the river, but in fact when Takaka picked it up, it turned out to be small. The guys praised Toku's abilities. Aisha warned the fish would slip away, but Toku just glared and threatened her. The guys discussed how to cook the fish. Aisha criticized Toku's failed catch. They paired off and talked. Toku watched Aldred's fish prep in confusion, so Aldred explained the right way to cook. Guys stared, surprising and embarrassing Aldred. They lit a fire, cooked fish. Someone called Aisha from behind. The apron girl pointed at Aisha, accusing her of slacking off again before launching into a rant. Shocked, the stranger bowed to Aldred, introducing herself as Aina, Aisha's sister. Aldred introduced himself. Toku ordered Aisha back to work and Aina agreed. Aisha eyed the cooking fish, promising to start after eating. Then Aina asked about the guys. Back in Avalon's Grand Palace, a blond man screams in rage over Aldred's disappearance. Hearing the king's screams, the man remembered the companion's tip and kept hunting for Aldred. The king menacingly declared Aldred's rest was over, ordering his immediate return to the kingdom. Aldred bowed, understanding. Aldred, Flora, and Toku grabbed fried fish sticks and ate, all agreeing the fish was delicious. Sisters quietly ate the fish. Aina declared it delicious, not bitter. Aisha then quoted Aldred's fish cooking tips, stunning Toku with her cunning. Around the campfire, Toku told Aldred to sell fish, then offered the guys fruits. Flora blushed at the taste. Toku squeezed juice onto the fried fish, and the sisters kept feasting. Aldred held the fish, seeing the guys' smiles. He knew today was perfect, wishing every day felt this good. The guys sat on logs eating leftover fish, gear nearby, overlooking a stunning river and dense forest. An arrow pierces a giant bird midair, making it shriek as its massive wings flare out. An arrow fells a bird. Karina rushes to it, picks it up, calling Aldred a shooting master. Aldred just raises a finger, claiming he felt the wind. Aldred experienced, knew Karina wasn't. He said only hard work helped. Karina went for fruit as Aldred hung carcasses on a tree. He stops at the bushes as Karina teases that women love a good hunter, leaving Aldred flustered. Aldred smiled sheepishly as the guys picked berries, discussed love, then returned to the village, greeted by children. The kids swarmed Karina to see her latest catch, a rabbit. Aldred called them fast, but Karina joked that a bird hunter like him should know. The boys cheered. Kids get distracted by their fruits. Aldred leaves the guys, meets a girl, and hands her his herbs. She thanks him. The kids backed away and waved goodbye. Karina noted Aldred was finally warming up as he waved back. Sunlight hit the village as Aldred swung open his windows to a stunning view. Aldred's room held a bed, closet, table, chair. Aldred and villagers drew water at the well. Back home, Aldred grinned at the feast on his table and dug in. Aldred found Flora's street. They greeted, then harvested, discussed, and tried vegetables. Aldred discussed plans with Flora to develop land near his home. She listened, then sharply blushed. The girl raised her fists, offering to help Aldred farm the soil near his house. Aldred agreed to Flora's plan. Her eyes lit up as she promised to get tools from her dad. She sprinted home, leaving Aldred in awe of her spirit. Arriving at Aldred's house, they found tools on the ground and immediately planned their first move. Guys donned gloves, grabbed gardening tools, discussing planting radishes, then carrots and cabbage. Flora smiled sweetly. Flora knelt to cut the grass as Aldred worked nearby, studying his tool and mimicking her every move. Flora told Aldred he was skilled with the instrument. Aldred, embarrassed, thought he'd learned it by watching Flora. The guys gathered grass in baskets, discussing Aldred's past while he smiled and nervously muttered about monsters. Aldred nearly blabbed about the fights. Flora muttered behind him, so he turned to check on her. Flora grabbed another instrument, declaring she'd panic and run from any monster. The guys rose, ready to plow the land. Aldred swung, hitting the ground. Nearby, the guys kept plowing as Aldred wiped sweat from his face. Aldred wiped his face and eyed the field as Flora stood by with a jar, praising his work. Aldred drank from Flora's mug as she explained the right way to plow. Flora beamed. Aldred watched her, realizing that with her, he could finally live an honest life. Aldred toiled, hunting and farming, until fruit sprouted. The crew kept working, fertilizing the harvest. Aldred watched the sprouts as Flora explained the harvest must wait, clutching a basket of plants. Aldred tended plants in the field, feeling he spent most his time working it. Flora helped him farm the field, having a blast hauling grass before finally pulling their first radishes. Aldred worked the fields when Flora approached with a basket. They immediately discussed the harvest and helping each other out. Blushing, Flora handed Aldred the basket and invited him to lunch. He agreed. The guys went to the flower field for lunch, admiring its beauty. The guys discussed the flowers while Flora sat by a bush. Aldred watched, clueless about her plan. Flora held flowers, explaining some are edible, others medicinal. Aldred watched the flowers and listened to Flora, stroking his chin in thought. Aldred remembered the girl's dress and legs, recalling a warning from 9 years ago until a sudden crash terrified him. Flora collapsed, reaching for her basket. Aldred grabbed the basket, seeing Flora's tearful face. Aldred wiped Flora's tears and told her to stay patient. Petals swirled around them as Aldred stared, shocked, at Flora's tear-stained eyes. Aldred studied Flora's face. Flora flushed, mouth opening, but words failed her. They stood facing off, petals swirled. Suddenly, Aldred's stomach growled. Flora laughed into her hand. Aldred blushed, scratched his head, and apologized for the misunderstanding. Flora stepped forward, grinning that it was lunchtime as petals swirled around her. Aldred followed her. He saw petals as his stomach rumbled. Flora tried to speak, but he cut her off. She'd speak later. Flora flushed, lips trembling on the verge of tears. Aisha eyed her suspiciously, noting she still hadn't told him today. The girls sat for tea. Flora hunched over and shrank back. Across the table, Aisha folded her hands and glared. Flora agreed with Aisha, eyeing the tea set. Aisha thought her best friend Flora came for advice. Aisha introduces Aldred and spots Flora's tan lines. She senses Aldred's crush, but Flora's shyness keeps her from admitting it. Aisha saw Flora's confusion and knew her kindness was a burden. Flora was stunning, but she suffered because she couldn't confess to Aldred. Flora turned beet red as Aisha exposed her 9-year crush on Aldred. Aisha leaned, sighing. She thought she didn't know the past's full details, but they'd met 9 years ago. Aisha pictured their interactions, recalling Flora was 9 and Aldred 18. That's when Flora fell for him. Aisha told Flora Aldred remembered her from their meeting. Flora smiled, looking down, fidgeted in her chair. Flora revealed Aldred remembered 9 years ago, leaving Aisha shocked she knew. Flora told Aldred about the flowers, but he already knew. Aisha clenched her fists, shouting everything was going well. Flora clutched her face, crying tears of joy that Aldred remembered her. Aisha blushed hand to face. She then said Flora had thought of Aldred for 9 years, finding her very clever. Flora put her hands to her face, shaking her head, saying she was too happy to think. Flora spoke as Aldred wiped her tears with his handkerchief. Their closeness was exciting. Aisha's face twisted. Aisha covered her face, thinking Flora was hopeless. Flora whimpered she couldn't do anything else. Flora clasped her fingers as the girls discussed Aldred, their cups empty. Flora points out their usual hangout, then looks away, lost in thought. Flora blushed, explaining they accidentally touched at work. Aisha eyed Flora oddly, drooling. Aisha slammed the table, screaming Flora's just a kid. Flora nervously asked what else she could do. Aisha thinks it over, pokes Flora, and tells her to cuddle Aldred and confess her feelings. Flora screamed, face hidden, too mortified to act. Aisha countered. What could Flora offer then? Flora gasped as Aisha warned, act now or another girl will take Aldred. As the girls gushed over Aldred being a catch, Aisha gripped her cup and told Flora to confess. Flora teared up, her voice shaking as she confessed she was too shy to lose their bond. Aisha saw the flowers, realizing Flora could express herself. She suggested using them to express feelings, just like Flora's father. Flora shouted, good idea. Aisha then reminded her other girls could take Aldred. Blushing betrayed, Flora vowed to gather the flowers and finally confessed to Aldred, while Aisha watched with a smile. Aldred and Karina walked through the forest, surrounded by lush bushes, tables, and tree stumps. A strange noise stops them. Aldred peers ahead while Karina stays behind him. Aldred scratched his face, muttering the forest felt strange. Karina agreed, animals too quiet. Hooves clattered, Aldred tensed. Aldred drew his bow, Karina mirrored him. They aimed, discussing two deer moving from the west. Antlered deer burst from the bushes. Aldred and Karina fired their arrows. Arrows pierced the beasts' skulls, dropping them instantly as the hunters lowered their bows to stare at the kills. Securing their massive haul, the group headed back to the village. Karina's teacher leaped from the bushes, smiling broadly, terrifying an unsuspecting Karina. Karina clenched her fist, warning the bear was closing in, and the man scratched his head, confirming she was right. He showed them wool. They discussed nearby bear tracks and needed to alert other hunters. Karina nervously looked at the guys who began to calm her down. The men looked at each other, and the teacher said that bears do not always enter villages, but they can get to the flower garden. The teacher strokes Karina's head. Aldred knows the village needs backup, but with the guild too far, he must stay alert. The teacher laughed, patting Karina's head. Aldred looked away, picturing a flower field while vowing to protect the village from the bear. Aldred eyed the forest warily, knowing he'd need his sword again. The guys returned to the village. Teacher handles the elder, Karina heads south, and Aldred warns the flower field as they all race to their posts. Aldred sprinted past the fields into the village. Harvesting kids cheered, asking all about the hunt. Aldred bolted past the kids, kicking up dust as he warned the man about a mountain monster heading for the flower garden. The blond man screamed. He and Aldred discussed the monster's danger, then Aldred ran to warn villagers. The blond man and Karina's teacher warned the village about the monster, sparking pure terror. Aldred reached a field, met a woman and kids, and warned them of danger. He then shouted, calling for anyone in the flower garden. The flower garden was empty. Soon, the guys reached Tuaku's house. Toku aimed his bow. They discussed the red bear as Aldred smiled, watching Tuaku practice. Shaking with nerves, Toku admits he can build bows, but can't shoot as he fires at the target. Toku's arrow struck a tree. Toku froze in place. The guys silently stared at the style. Toku shut his eyes and exhaled, claiming he was already better. Aldred stood by, drenched in sweat, as they analyzed the target and their archery skills. Aldred spoke with a girl and an old woman as Alba rushed over, shouting that Flora was missing. The village was deserted. Albus and Aldred hadn't seen Flora in ages, suspecting she was at the vineyards. Frustrated, Albus hoped Flora was in the vineyards. His face grew sadder. Albus muttered, hoping it wasn't a repeat of 9 years ago. Aldred wanted to say something, but someone abruptly called him out. Aisha sprinted to the guys, tears streaming, grabbing Aldred's hands, struggling to speak through gasps. Aldred knew Flora was in trouble. Aisha clung to him as he demanded to know why she was terrified. Aisha's face was red, tears streamed, she panicked, gasping only Aldred and Flora's names. Aldred stared at her in fright. Aldred shook with fear and looked up, gripping a crying Aisha's hands while Albus tried to calm her. High mountains towered past the trees as distant hoofbeats echoed. Deer, one missing a horn, fled from someone, leaping stone to stone, its mouth drooling. A one-horned deer plummeted from the rocks, making the ground tremble and shatter into pieces. A massive beast lunges from the rocks, fangs bared as it chases a one-horned deer. The monster slashed and snapped its jaws as the deer bolted through the trees. A loud blast echoes, dust explodes as the deer drops, severed trees and boulders fly, stone fragments filling the air. The deer lay among shredded trees and rocks, drooling as its jaws slowly pried open. Footsteps disturbed the forest. The monster snapped alert, ears twitching, rising to scan its surroundings as drool and blood dripped from its muzzle. The black monster perched on a boulder, claws digging in as he scanned the area and spotted someone nearby. The monster looked down. Flora knelt at the cliff's base, picking herbs, a small basket beside her. Aldred returned home on guard, eyeing his bandaged sword and never expecting to wield a blade again. Aldred remembered Aisha crying. She screamed Flora was at the red bear's spot. Aldred gritted his teeth, unwrapping his sword's ribbon. Aldred ran through the forest and flower field, sword on his back. His body felt heavy, unlike his usual mountain hunts, but this didn't compare to his adventure trainings. He needed to hurry. Aldred sprinted through the field, crushing flowers with a red face and gritted teeth. Darkness fell around Aldred as petals drifted. He ran, desperate to avoid the monster, having come here to retire. Aldred gripped his blade, cloak whipping in the wind, realizing he'd lost his reason to fight for a peaceful life. Aldred sprinted, sword sheathed. A light flickered, and suddenly he was armed, but what was he even fighting for? Aldred remembered Flora's smile, fighting for his friends and the girl he swore to protect. Aldred remembered Flora's face and realized he'd loved her since they met. He had to protect her at all costs. Suddenly, he stopped, gasping for air. Aldred faced the dark thicket, a sheathed sword on his back. He caught his breath, then pushed through the dense plants. Sweat poured down Aldred's face as he nervously scanned the dense bushes. Aldred heard a piercing scream. He pictured a scared Flora, frozen, clutching flowers. Fear flushed Aldred. A monster maw opened, chased Flora. It swung its paw. Flora fell, hand shielding. Aldred materialized, charged the monster, yelling, "Duck, Flora." Flora dropped and shielded her head as Aldred stepped in, crushing the beast. Aldred's punch slammed the monster's neck, disorienting it into drooling. Flora lay grounded as Aldred, sword ready, pulled the monster away. Flora clutched her head, then sat up, her gaze fixed on Aldred who stood before her. The monster grinned, enraged, as Aldred asked if she was okay. Terrified, Flora gasped Aldred's. The monster raged, baring fangs at Aldred. Flora wept, terrified, watching him. He warned her it was too dangerous. She had to leave. Aldred froze, face flushing as Flora's tears triggered a memory of a girl who looked exactly like her. Aldred remembered the blonde girl's smiling thanks as he carried her across the field, recalling her flower story. Aldred stared at the terrified Flora, wondering if she was the girl he saved 9 years ago. The monster bared its teeth to charge, and Flora flinched away. Flora screams Aldred's name as claws loom over him. He dodges and blocks, but the beast grabs his blade midair. The monster gripped Aldred's sword. Aldred strained, trembling, holding it back, and ordered Flora to leave, insisting he'd be fine. Flora argued back. Aldred smiled at Flora, assuring her he'd beat the red bear, referencing an incident 9 years prior. Flora stared ahead, mesmerized. After Aldred's words, Flora blushed, tears of joy welling in her eyes. Flora held flowers and ran. Aldred and the monster clashed. Aldred gritted his teeth, finally feeling his sword. Aldred swung his sword. The monster recoiled. The monster circled, fangs bared. Aldred pulled back his sword, and it flared with light. Aldred readied his glowing blade as Flora watched in awe. The beast charged, and Aldred met it head-on. The monster attacked Aldred with its clawed paw. Aldred swung his sword, and the monster's paw crumbled. The monster stared at its paw, surprised, as parts crumbled to the ground. Aldred stood ready, sword in hand, while Flora's jaw dropped. Aldred charged the monster, lights flashing as the beast roared. The monster collapsed, tree trunks and leaves sprawled beside it. Aldred stood before the monster, sword in hand. Aldred's sword stopped glowing as he sheathed it, realizing mana would let him pierce dragons and shatter giant skills. Aldred blushed as Flora dove into his arms, her face flushed and eyes teary. The men faced off. Aldred checked if she was okay. Flora was terrified, but he'd saved her. Guys silently crossed the flower field, confused. Aldred looked at Flora, realizing she was the girl he saved 9 years ago. He remembered that day. Aldred flushed red. He loved Flora more than a friend, but couldn't find the words while she stood there, staring ahead. Flora stopped at the tree in a flower field, staring fascinated. Leaves and petals flew around her. Stopping by a tree in a flower field, Flora recalls an incident from 9 years ago. Aldred apologizes for just now remembering. Flora closed her eyes, confessing she failed to forget the incident. Aldred tried to speak, but Flora interrupted him. Flora blushed, smiled, thanking Aldred for saving her. Aldred laughed, rubbed his nose, then stared surprised at Flora holding a flower. Tears streaming and hair windswept, Flora smiled, confessing her 9-year love for Aldred. Aldred flushed, jaw dropped. Flora smiled, eyes closed. Aldred wiped his teary eyes, questioning Flora's words. Aldred took the flower as Flora explained that giving it to a crush guarantees you'll be together forever. Aldred smiled and confessed his love. Flora blushed, tears filling her eyes. Aldred held Flora's flower and hugged her. Flora, surprised, hugged him back. The guys shared a long hug. Flora's tears streamed, petals swirled around them. Flora touched Aldred's smile. He stroked her blushing face, and they finally reached for each other. The guys kissed under a massive tree as petals and leaves swirled through the air. The guys reached the village, flowers blooming by small homes. Villagers cheered Flora and Aldred, relieved they were safe. The pair walked hand in hand. Albus spun as a villager shouted they were back. He and his family rushed out, but Aisha outran them all. Aisha hugged Flora, tear-stained, screaming Flora's name. Albus stared, surprised, at the girls. Aldred stared terrified at fallen Flora and Aisha. Aisha fearfully checked Flora, apologized, then they joined hands and rose. Flora stood with her parents as Albus confirmed she was unhurt. She agreed, and the villagers swarmed the group, cheering for their return. Flora hugged her mom as Albus smiled, while Aisha wiped her face and Aldred watched with a grin. The ancient inhabitants came up to Aldred, slapping his back. Everyone agreed only Aldred could decide if he went into the danger zone for Flora. Aldred knew they didn't know his past. Tawaku smiled, thanking Aldred for their safety. Aldred thanked him. The girl then spoke of Flora's attacker. Villagers saw Flora's red bear attack, falling silent in shock. Flora recalled Aldred's glowing sword and explained how he saved her from the bear's attack. Villagers fearfully discussed Flora's history. Flora told them not to worry. Aldred dealt with the monster. Toku and Aisha looked at the guys in surprise. Aldred reached into his pocket and pulled out the monster's fangs and claws, proving his adventurer past. Karina's teacher examined the monster's claw, questioning how Aldred fought it alone, shocked by his unknown strength, while Aldred wondered if he was that fated. Villagers silenced, staring terrified at Flora as she wildly recounted Aldred's monster fight. Aldred stood aside blushing as Toku and Aisha joined Flora. Karina called him amazing, and her teacher agreed. Aldred nervously scratched his head as Karina cursed him out. Her teacher ordered them to retrieve the red bear's body, and Aldred tagged along. Karina's teacher winked, telling Aldred to rest while they handled everything. He had to stay by Flora. Karina stood nearby, smiling sweetly as Aldred stared at Flora's flushed body. Teacher and Karina moved out. Residents helped. Aldred and Flora's family bowed in gratitude. Toku invited Aisha back. Flora encouraged her. Toku mocked Aisha, but she glared and told him to shut it. The girls held hands, cheering each other up. Flora blushed and smiled, admitting she'd have kept it all secret without Aisha. Aisha and Toku looked at Aldred with a smile and said that Flora would have to tell the guys the stories in more detail. Aisha and Toku left the guys. Flora's parents stayed with Flora and Aldred, and they decided to leave too. Aldred blushed, thinking Flora needed family time after such a rough day. Flora's mom gripped her shoulder, telling Aldred to protect her, as Albus smiled and agreed. Flora flushed at her parents' words, and Aldred watched with a surprised grin. Flora turned to her parents, arms spread wide, screaming she didn't understand, as Aldred stood aside. Flora's parents laughed, saying Aisha told them she went to the forest for the flower sticking out behind Aldred. Aldred and Flora recoiled as her parents confirmed they were officially a couple. Flora froze in embarrassment, while Aldred shot a terrified look at the flower behind him. Flora's mom smiled, telling the guys to stay at Aldred's house after their long day, but they stared back in pure terror. Startled, Aldred asked Albus what they meant. Happy tears flowed from Albus. His girl was grown, soon a bride. Aldred stepped aside, blushing even redder. Flora's parents called Aldred father-in-law, sending Flora into a panic while Aldred started shaking. Flora and Aldred blushed, meeting eyes, as Flora's mom shoved her, telling Aldred to protect her. Aldred caught Flora as the confused kids watched her parents wave and hold hands. Aldred and Flora hugged, blushing hard, while buildings and shrubs lined the background. Flora and Aldred exchanged nervous looks. Aldred broke the silence, saying they could go home. Flora agreed. Fluffy clouds drifted over the village. Boys head to Aldred's quiet house. Aldred smiles, opening the door for Flora, who stands silent, staring ahead. Aldred looked at Flora, declaring his house always open. Don't hesitate to come anytime. Flora blushed, her eyes on him. Flora blushed and smiled, nodding her understanding as they headed inside with Aldred gripping the handle. Flora scanned the room, a wooden table, chairs, sunlight from a small window. The girl added this house would soon be theirs. Flora smiled at Aldred, offering tea while he rested, then slipped off her shoes into slippers. Flora entered the kitchen, grabbed a jar of dried leaves, then neared the teapot with more food jars beside it. Flora smiled, eyes closed, making tea. Aldred sat opposite, smiling as he watched. As the kettle screams, Flora mixes the tea and crushes dried fruit into the glass teapot. Flora brewed tea with mint leaves. Aldred closed his eyes, savoring the aroma. Flora smiled, almost ready. She grabbed a bag, plating sweets, then strained tea into cups. Flora brought the tea set to Aldred's table, explaining it was apple mint tea. Aldred thanked her, then drank. Aldred beamed, praising the tea as his face flushed red, while Flora sat opposite him, shyly clutching her cup. Flora closed her eyes and sipped the steaming tea, savoring the flavor. Flora took the tea, offering Aldred a refill. He held out his cup, agreeing. Aldred held the cup, smiling at Flora, but she worried she was doing something wrong. Aldred, blushing and smiling, told her she did everything right, overjoyed. Flora smiled back, making Aldred's ears burn red. Tea sits in cups as the guys keep cooking. Dishes crowd the table while they have a blast. They chatted till sunset. Flora held a fork, laughing hard with Aldred. Next, they washed dishes. Darkness fell, bright stars appeared. Aldred and Flora sat at an empty table in embarrassed silence, a floral ribbon tied to Flora's head. Aldred and Flora locked eyes, silence stretched. Aldred smiled, sighed heavily, then called Flora, startling her. Aldred suggested a bath with Flora. She shot up, screaming she understood and was sleeping in the bedroom. Flora froze, repeating Aldred's words about the bath. He needed a wash after a sweaty day, so Flora agreed to go next. Aldred offered Flora his hand, insisting they'd go to the bathroom together. Flora's face flushed. In the bathroom, Flora yelled the tub wasn't ready. Aldred held the basket, promising his magic would make it quick. Flora covered her blushing face. Aldred admitted he was embarrassed, but bathing separately takes too long. Flora stared in shock. Flora clutched her chest as Aldred approached, looking down and silently turning away. Flora looked at Aldred and agreed, her face still burned red. Flora's back to Aldred. Aldred grabbed her corset's thread. Flora blushed deeper, turned, shouting his name. Flora clutched her chest, gazing down, then closed her eyes, slowly stretching her dress button. Flora blushed red, stripping to her shirt as her hair hid her face, while a naked Aldred turned to face her. Flora gripped her chopper, a strap slipping as Aldred approached. Both blushed as he asked if she was okay, and she silently nodded, avoiding his gaze. Aldred reached for Flora's shoulder, brushing a shirt strap off. Embarrassed, Flora squeezed her eyes shut and lowered her hands. Flora's clothes hit the floor, and she quickly covered herself, telling Aldred to stop staring. Flora covered herself, hair falling loose, then glanced shyly at Aldred. Flora's amazed magical objects can instantly fill a tub with hot water. Submerged in a shared tub, the pair sits in awkward confusion. The MC loves the cheap convenience and his massive stockpile. Flora wants to bathe daily, but he stays silent. In the bath, he blushes from the heat and pure embarrassment, staring at the girl beside him. Flora stares blankly at the water, hair veiling her face. Her cheeks burn as water drips from her hands. Too embarrassed to be this close, she stays silent. They sit, incredibly worried. He eyes his companion, confused, mouth opening to speak. He turns to Flora, asking her to sit closer. She instantly trembles, face flushing, growing shyer, and pretends not to hear him. MC makes his move and slides closer. She flinches, but Aldred's smug grin proves he's never letting Flora go. He yanks her close by the shoulder, telling her to stop being timid. Flora squeals but clings to him, shouting she's way too close to Aldred. The main character takes the girl by the hand, gently holds her, asking a rhetorical question that it's time to wash off all the foam and soap. The girl does not resist, gives her palm to the man. Flora clenches her fists, face bright red, and shakily offers to rub his back herself. Aldred doesn't resist, simply raising a curious eyebrow. Fresh from the bath, they sit together as he turns on his stool to look back at Flora. Towel in hand, she rubs his back. He leans in. Flora rubs his back, making him blush unseen as she smiles, diligently foaming his back. Her eyes light up, she examines his body like a kitten, feels Aldred's shoulders, gushing about his muscles. Flora presses close, silently touching and rubbing his soft skin. He hisses, eyes wide with shock. Aldred cringes as Flora snuggles close. She rubs her back harder and harder, unaware of the hero's reaction. The boy squints, desperately avoiding Flora's body. Even I feel awkward. Girl sees Aldo tremble, smiles at his soapy back, asking if he feels that good. He replies yes, trying to hide his flushed face. The girl picks up the basin, pours water on his back, washing off the soap. Done with his back, she tells the hero to stand and face her. The young man rises as the girl rubs his body. Flora wipes her chest, and the hero's body is covered in foam again. Her thin hands scrub her chest, foam thickens, bubbles burst. He loves the soft towel's touch. Awkward, sweat beading, he knows what's coming. She pulls the towel away and stares in shock. He shudders, begging her to stop. Flora's eyes widen. She shudders and screams, her face flushing as she finally realizes everything. Jumping back, she screams, apologizes, and blushes, insisting she meant nothing bad. The guy excuses it as a natural body reaction. The girl calms down, remembering her mother's warnings. Still confused, she finally knows what to do. Her words embarrass him. He stares confused at the girl, knowing it's too far, anticipating Flora's next move but doesn't stop her. Kneeling and dazed, his uneasy companion won't stop. She's already gone too far. He calls her name, trying to stop her, but she says washing will be problematic without her help. She presses down with both hands, making his whole body tremble. Eyes shut, sweat drips, forehead glows red. Flora leans closer. He clenches his fists as the girl drops to her knees. Shushing, he scowls, struggling to hold on. San notices her touch, feels nothing like his own hands. The hands finish their motion. The hero sighs, opens his eyes, and locks onto the girl. He tells Flora to tighten her grip, move faster. She stops, looks up at him, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. She nods, I get it now. Clutching it tighter, the girl swings her arms furiously, losing all control. He decides to test the wild idea in his head. The main character clenches his relaxed hand into a fist and faces Flora, signaling her to take this part in her mouth. She parts her lips in surprise, eyes glowing like a duck. Flora's mouth opens, scorching the already hot par with breath, then scans. The girl's plump lips part. His awkward face flashes in her mind as she realizes she's in love with Aldo. Flora sees him giggling at small things, his wet, messy hair, and his bright smile offering her flowers. She searches for why she loves him. Aldo flashes back to meeting Flora, her bright smile in a magnificent dress. He knew she liked him. Hiro remembers saving Flora, now seeing her adult self with a basket, wiping sweat. He recalls her joyful tears over flowers, realizing his love. He realizes he loves Flora. Squelching and grunting erupt from the bathroom. Breathing hard, she clings to herself to stay upright, her body trembling with pleasure as he calls Flora incredible. Hearing the guys on the way, the heroine accelerates, ready to claim her victory. The girl mumbles, head jerking quickly. She needs no orders, she knows her place. Flora stops, tears filling her eyes. She hums at the warmth but doesn't pull away, swallowing wave after wave. Saliva drips from her mouth as the girl buries her nose in a soft place. The man makes no effort to move her. Her hands shake as she grips the floor to stay upright. Tears stream down as she mumbles, her face twisted in pain. When it's over, the girl falls silent. He stares at his dazed companion after the spell. Flora watches, his hand on her cheek. They share a silent look, understanding everything. His quiet voice breaks the silence, thanking her. The girl smiles, thrilled to please her love. She pulls his hand to her burning cheek, eyes shut and smiling. Aldo knows tonight's about to get intense. From bathroom to bedroom, Hiro pins Flora to the bed, kissing her hard. Fingers intertwine, bodies pressed tight, soft mumbles fill the air. Pulling away, the main character touches the tip of his nose to someone else's and exhales into the girl's parted lips. Flora interrupts their kiss. He exhales raggedly, eyes shut. Flora screams, blaming the MC's unrestrained touches for everything. Suddenly, the main character grabs the girl's inner thigh, jerks her over to face him. Flora gasps and blushes, locking eyes with him. Aldred soothes her, saying this is normal and nothing to shame. Then the girl shivers, moans softly, and covers her eyes. Opening her eyes, she senses the end and warns him that at this pace, she'll finish the job. The heroine clutches the sheets, her body shaking as screams and grunts echo from the walls. The girl parts her lips, gasping for breath after intense pleasure. Her left hand curls, eyes moist as she looks away. He asks if Flora's okay. She nods, ready to go, and reaches out to touch him. Aldo announces he's entering. He starts to speak, then pauses. The girl screams, struggling to crawl, wincing and squinting from the unexpected jolt. A silent moan escapes her. He stops, unwilling to harm Flora, but she grabs his hand, intertwining their fingers. With tears in her eyes, she begs Aldo not to stop despite the pain. Flora wraps her arms around his neck, pulling him close as she moans with a furrowed brow. Her eyes flutter open, mouth agape, meeting the young man's eyes, confused. They've gone too far, too late to stop. Both want pleasure. Hands intertwine. He squeezes her hand, pinning her to the bed. Grunts and pleasure screams fill the room, consuming them. Flora tries to call him, but only garbled syllables escape as her hair falls, covering her face. Aldred leans close, breathing against Flora's lips. Silence says it all. They both know their love is real. Flora and Aldo share a soft kiss, their cheeks burning red. They shyly close their eyes, mumbling against each other's lips. His companion pulls her leg away, feeling him accelerate. She clutches crumpled sheets, screaming uncontrollably. Blushing hard, Flora admits she loves the solid sensation, staring at him with flushed cheeks and messy hair. He tells Flora he's almost done, gritting his teeth and pushing hard to reach the end. His companion trembles, promising it'll be okay, as the man squints and hisses he's almost ready. After exchanging emotions, Flora and Aldo share an admiring laugh, blushing and sweating with embarrassment, but they did it. Flora tilts her head and kisses him, playfully biting his lip. He leans on the bed, eyes covered, gently touching another's lips. Next morning, sunlight floods the room as our hero wakes up in his companion's arms, tucked under a warm blanket. Sunlight hits the room as he wakes to Flora dozing on his chest, exhausted from their stormy night. He turns to the sleeping girl, eyes squinting against the morning light. Flora's eyelashes tremble slightly. She sniffs softly, does not open her eyes yet, basks on the warm chest of the main character. Sans brushes the hair from Flora's eyes. Lost in her dreams, she doesn't feel his touch and hums softly. He snaps his eyes open, finally realizing how to wake his stubborn partner. The main character gently touches the cheek of a sleepy girl with the knuckles of his palm, stroking her while she mumbles softly, still sleeping and does not feel anything. She purses her lips into a thin line. The young man takes more action, repeatedly jabbing a cheek. Aldo fights laughter, still touching his friend's hair. She buries her face in the pillow, shunning the guy like a fly with no options. Aldo bites Flora's ear. She screams in surprise. He giggles, she's finally awake. Flora asks, did he see everything? He's touched by her reaction, giving her a bright smile while she grows nervous. She hides under the covers, claiming she looks a mess, but he grabs her chin and pulls her close. He mentions her sweet sleeping face and gives Flora a soft, lazy kiss. They both hide their eyes, suddenly shy despite the night they shared. Two cooing owls watch the lovers through the window, smiling as they crouch for a closer look. Aldo and Flora touch foreheads, eyes closed. He says waking up next to the one you love is incredible. Flora touches his cheek. His eyes snap open, questioning her as her fingertips trace his skin. Flora grins at the hero, offering to cook and host guests, but most importantly, they aren't alone anymore. He presses their palm, recalling a knight in a dark cloak with a sword. He pauses, then the guy nods. The young man agrees they'll do everything together, starting with breakfast. The girl smiles, eyes closed, pleased with his answer. Flora rises, blanket falling, then agrees to cook his homegrown radishes for breakfast, squeezing the fabric as she stares at him. She hops out of bed, revealing her curves. The guy's eyes widen as he blushes and screams in shock. Cut to the vineyard. Two hat-wearing figures harvest large grapes from hidden vines into baskets, as a bright, cloudless sky ominously foreshadows rain. Aina spent the morning hearing how Aldo soloed the red bear, her eyes widening as she clenches her fist. Aisha nods her head and asks if she expected something like this from the young man Aina. The white-haired guy says that he is glad that the main character has arrived from Norland. Aina thinks Aldo is very cool. All three of them are sitting at a table in a clearing and telling interesting news. Toke laughs, mocking Aisha for panicking when Flora was in danger. She crosses her arms and pouts, staring blankly ahead. Aisha cuts him off, slamming her heel into his bare leg. He screams, but stays silent to protect her reputation. Toke faceplants the table, stifling his groans as the girl ignores him, claiming Aldo saved them and mocking the idiot who can't even handle a bow. Toke's face twists in anger. Aisha asks if she's wrong, but he gives no answer, just standing and walking out, leaving Aina clueless. The girl watches the boy leave, then turns to her sister, displeased. Aisha looks away, saying it wasn't as it was. Ina objects Toke said otherwise, but Aisha stands, eyes closed, declaring it is. She leaves, stretching lazily like waking from a dream, and Ina can't say a word. Ina awkwardly laughs, saying her sister won't be a sister, but she doesn't hear it anymore. Back at the village, residents watch their kids play in the beautiful gardens. Meanwhile, the Dew overlooks the village from a hill, spotting wooden houses and plowed fields. He pulls Flora close as she leans into his chest, smiling at the horizon while Aldo admires the view. Recalling his Norland roots, he's relieved to finally leave the capital behind. He looks at photos of his grand return to the capital, but despite the cheers and honors, he felt zero joy. Turning to Flora, he calls her name and confesses his love again, eyes burning with joy and tenderness. The hero in the clearing declares he's never felt this, thanking Flora for new emotions. Flora whispers she didn't either. Joyful tears stream down her cheeks as Flora confesses her love for Aldo. He pulls her into a tight hug, hiding his eyes as she sobs with joy against his shoulder. The hero pats her head and smiles while Flora grabs his shoulder, sobbing. They both realize the paired flower legend is real. Focus shifts to Karun, an A-rank adventurer and former Black Silver Squad member. Now she teaches at a magic school, her childhood dream, but there's a catch. Karuna, a high ponytail girl, enters the headmaster's office, confronts a bespectacled woman with painted lips, declares she's quitting, and leaves. The director scoffs at the teacher and leaps off the table, begging Karun to stay, but she ignores his promises and storms out. Leaving school, Karun grips her wand, takes one last look, and marches forward. This magic academy wasn't what she expected. The heroine pictures the headmistress and two teachers surrounding her, recalling the school's constant class discrimination and noble formalities. Refusing to endure it, Karun abandons the school of magic, regretting the choice but escaping those people. Karuna's dragon slayer fame attracted desperate aristocrats. Down a long corridor, she spots a white-haired guy approaching with flowers. He stops before her, clutching a rose and greeting Karunessen. This is Earl Clark Raymond, head of the Raymond family. The young man offers Karuna a flower. Awkwardly, she accepts it, saying nothing, just staring at the bloom, unsure what to do. This royal knight constantly hunts Alda, demanding his location and a marriage proposal. Karuni sees Raymond's smile is fake again, even as he confidently smiles at her. Fed up with the nobles, Karuna was confused and insulted when Aldo announced he was quitting the team. Now the heroine understands him. She envisions him smiling, telling his companion he's going to Norland for a calm life. The girl walks down the dark alley, holding a wand and a bag. She remembers Aldo said he went to a small countryside village. Emerging into light, the ex-magic teacher decides to live quietly among normal people, teaching them magic. Cut to a sun-drenched city buzzing with life. People crowd the streets, merchants shout for customers, and horse-drawn wagons haul goods past busy shops. Sighing, she closes her eyes and whispers that maybe this is for the best. Village kids Karun past craved magic more than nobles. Their eyes sparkled with wonder. This was the magic teacher's true dream, mentoring them. Amidst the crowd, the girl wonders about Aldo. He only wielded a sword. He hunts well but can't grow vegetables. In the cart, she worries about Aldo. He ignores girls, so he won't find a girlfriend soon and must be lonely. Karun beams, thinking about becoming a bride, but she quickly fights to bury the feeling. Action pauses for hours as a massive storm blinds the capital. Black-robed hero strides through puddles. His dark hood hides half his face. Lips sealed, he says nothing. A dark stranger stops at the Raymond mansion, staring at the glowing windows. Zalek sheds his soaked clothes. Fists clenched, he asks why the prince braved this storm. The prince delivers the king's command: find and return the warrior who killed the dragon Aldred. Zoke asks if Aldred's men seek the king. I picture him on his throne, draped in royal robes. The prince grins, claims it's possible, but only Zoke handles the difficult task. Sensing a trap, the man asks if Clark is plotting again. Clark smirks, leans back, and asks if the old man is in a bad mood. Clark realizes Zoke still obsesses over Aldred's revenge. His face darkens, lips tighten to a thin strip. No answer. Sensing the tension, the Count mocks Zoke's creepy face. Ignoring him, Zoke turns away to find Aldo. The Count reports new intel. A suspect fled west from the kingdom. Zohak absorbs the information. Clark clears Vespania and the Sylves. Witness reports match the timing, confirming the wanderer heading west was Aldred. The farmer the guy helped confirmed it. Zoic warns the hero's meddling will backfire this time. The man lingers, so the Count expects another question. He agrees, asking if Aldred can be collapsed. Clark orders the mercenary to do whatever it takes, just keep the target alive. The Count watches the dark figure retreat. Zote enters the rainy night for another job. Rain streaks his face as he stares ahead. Aldred won't escape this time. Cut 9 words, sentence 2. The young man looks at the radish sticking out of the ground and asks if he can pull it out. 19 words. He spots a radish and asks to. Aldred grabs a radish, shouts go ahead, and yanks it from the ground. The girl smiles, seeing he pulled it off. He admires the perfect radish, finally getting what Joy Flora meant about harvesting. Clapping, the girl perfectly understands Aldo, feeling the same picking her garden vegetables. He lets Flora pull the next one since they grew it together, sharing the glory. The girl flinches, pained, and drops to her knees, trembling. He leans closer, anxiously asking what's wrong. Flora replies everything hurts after that night. It was her first. Guilty, the hero apologizes for overdoing it. His companion says she's fine, just uncomfortable. She plucks a fresh radish, then another. He offers her a taste, and they both bite into the crunchy harvest. Crunching the veggie, Aldo finds it sweet and spicy. Flora calls it perfect. He claims he could eat a mountain of radishes, but the guy disagrees. Heroes make radish salad for breakfast. Aldo, baskets in hand, asks if they can replant radishes in the same spot. Flora says harvest old crops first. She says only then can you plant more. Back at the house with huge crop baskets, the hero suggests expanding the field for an even bigger harvest. Stepping inside, Flora apologizes for the intrusion, then realizes she's home. Mortified, she ignores Aldo's quiet giggles. Clutching her basket, the embarrassed girl says yesterday can't be helped. so the hero laughs and apologizes. Flora invites him to treat her home as his own, but he says it's impossible for Elgason. The guy grabs Flora's basket, offering help, but she refuses, insisting she'll cook for the MC herself since it won't take long. Aldo stops fighting and dazedly thanks her, letting her plan unfold. Flora grabs an apron, asks to wear it. The main character agrees, watching her tie a bow on her back. Facing him, she asks him to wait while she cooks, an apron tied and a wreath on her head. Her face turns red, and he can't look away from how cute she looks in that apron. Flora sets the table, apologizing for the wait, but the guy ignores her, fixated on the dish's red color. Radishes dyed them. The girl thinks the food looks even better, and the MC stares at the feast in awe. The young man offers to start eating as soon as possible, and Flora holds onto a chair, pushes it back to sit down, but she is still uncomfortable and in pain because of the events of last night. Fists clenched, the girl urges him to eat, eager for his reaction. The hero wishes you a pleasant appetite and spoons soup to his mouth. He carefully samples every dish and it's all incredible, especially the radish aftertaste. Our MC notices Flora isn't eating and asks what's wrong. She smiles, saying she just wants to watch him eat since she's always dreamed of cooking for a loved one. Clearing his throat to cover his embarrassment, he asks if Flora really watched him his whole first visit. The maiden justifies, claiming she couldn't help it. She just accepted she'd never find a man, then he appeared at her door. He found this amusing. Flora sees his smile, asks if she's funny. She looks at me with a pitying look and bites her food. With a bright smile, he tells Flora breakfast is only special because she's by his side. He realizes living with a loved one makes even the most boring moments exciting. The former magic teacher left the cart, heading another path to find Aldo. Zalek the mercenary follows, hunting the hero with deadly intent for the king and count. He suspects nothing. Eating with his friend, he hopes this peace lasts forever. Days with Aldo and Flora pass, the girl must return home. She tells her lover. Haroldne's statement shocks him. Piling laundry, Flora says her parents let her stay, but she misses them and wants to visit. Flora gazes at the hero, hoping he'll join her journey. She refuses to leave alone. Embarrassed by the offer, the hero agrees to go with his companion since they're a couple, meaning he must meet Elgiz and Fiona, her parents. But he wasn't finished. He hesitates, his friend watching intently, waiting for the rest. Rubbing his ear, he awkwardly asks Flora's parents for her hand. Wedding styles change from city to village, but if a church is nearby, that's where they swear their vows. Or they announce it at a crowded harvest festival. Small villages lack festivals, so they need consent from each parent. Flora goes silent, clutching her chest. The main character watches, silent, fearing something's wrong. He leans in to see her face, but before he can speak, Flora bursts into tears, muffling her sobs with her hand. Aldo freezes, stunned by her tears, unsure how to act. He asks if he's rushing, but Flora cries and says no. Her tears are for a different reason. She looks up, smiles brightly, wiping her tears, and says she's just happy, apologizing for scaring him. He knows he chose the right partner. Smiling, he strokes her cheek and wipes away her tears. They hug, center room, Flora burying her head in Aldo's shoulder. He's grateful his companion accepts him. As Aldo's lover calms, he urges her to leave, but Karina confronts them at the open door. Nobody expected this. Stunned, the man greets his guest, praying she keeps her mouth shut. Karina giggles and drops some messy gossip. Aldo and Flora are finally together. She expected a longer wait since Aldo is clueless and Flora is a late bloomer. This angers the guy. He hits her, demanding silence. Karina screams, confused, but he calls it preventative. Calming down, she calls Flora and Aldo a perfect couple, then corrects herself. They're now the bride and groom. The young man shouts they'll get official permission, but Flora blushes, saying not to yell about it. Karina, even more embarrassed, yells their news will spread throughout Norland. Girl hides behind him. He asks Karina about the forest situation. She chuckles, then answers that's why she came. Gesturing wildly, the girl says the red bear arrived. Then she and her squad gathered all usable meat and materials. Karina recalls gathering materials as monsters swarmed the scent of blood, but the hunters easily repelled them, finishing the job without a scratch. Yesterday, girl brought meat for Aldo, but teacher said to ditch him, bring jerky next time. Hero asks when they can enter the forest. Karina says 4 to 7 days, if no new monsters appear. He thanks Flora, then heads to Elgis's house. Karina wishes them luck, advising caution on the road. They hug and leave. Flora and Aldo reach her parents' house, where her mom and dad greet them and celebrate their return. The father shakes his hand with a smile. The MC sizes him up as the mother leads them to the living room. Flora nears her mother, who sees her happier and more beautiful, then urges her to eat before the food chills. The table overflows with delicious dishes. He finds them appetizing, as Fiona went all out, knowing her daughter brought her lover. Sitting like a real family, the four clink glasses to celebrate their new bond. Flora's dad smiles, glass in hand and happy, but she asks what's wrong with his base. Dad's thrilled Flora brought Aldo home as her boyfriend. Flora's mortified and tells Dad to stop. Consider the virgin detail. Is it absolutely crucial? In a fast-paced recap, mortified. Fiona instead supports her husband, admitting she watched them since Aldo arrived from Norland and wondered when they'd couple up. Her mother's touched by her daughter's behavior and flushed face. Swirling his drink, Elgis admits he and his wife were waiting for Aldo to finally make a move on Flora. Aldo hangs his head, apologizing for his weakness. Flora leaps from the table, screaming that Aldo isn't weak and she'll protect him. She reveals he missed every hint and forgot 9 years ago. Flora's parents demand more, while Aldo wonders if she's supporting or humiliating him. Flora explains the main character cared for her and fought the monster to save her, so don't call Aldo weak. Her father smiles at her speech and closes his eyes with a final, meaningful sigh. Addressing the guy, Elgis says that if it wasn't for Aldo, then their daughter wouldn't be in this room right now, and he and his wife really appreciate it. Fiona and Elgis bow in gratitude, but the hero stops them, saying it's not needed. He explains saving his beloved feels natural, but the family head argues even if Flora is his beloved, not everyone can fight a monster and overcome their fear. Flora and Aldo share a nod, signaling him to make the offer they discussed this morning. Interrupting the thanks and honors, he faces the stunned family head. Aldo's shy and awkward but pulls himself together. Standing up, he eyes his parents and his girl, visibly nervous for what's next. Aldo shouts Elgis and Fiona's names. The companion looks at him, breath held, hands pressed to her chest. The wife raises a hand to her mouth, gasping in surprise. The young man declares he'll marry Flora, then asks the family for approval and blessings. Flora looks from the hero to her parents, just as desperate for an answer as he is. Aldo-san bows low, eyes closed, hoping for the family's consent to marry the girl. He misses it, but Elgis and Fiona share a smile that says everything. She understands, but stays silent. Flora's mother consents, and Elgis approves since it's Aldo. They'll announce the wedding at the Harvest Festival, with both parents fully on board. He rises stunned as Elgis permits the marriage and even offers support, then turns to his bride, joyfully calling her over. Aldo and Flora, now wed, are ecstatic. Flora leaps into Aldo's arms, crying happy tears as her parents watch, equally joyful, and Fiona wipes her own eyes. Suddenly, a new life begins. He asks the family head, shocked, if he'll be Norland's next elder. Aldo rubs his head and mumbles a confused yes when Elgis asks if he forgot Flora was his daughter. The man asks if he forgot Flora's father is a village elder. Embarrassed, the boy apologizes, admitting he always thought Elgis was Flora's father. The man just laughs, calling Aldo absent-minded. Elgis' wife turns to Flora, telling her to care for her betrothed. Embarrassed, Flora rolls her eyes and nods. Then it's dessert time. Sharing tea and cheesecake, Flora and the MC laugh happily. Elgis breaks the silence, smiling at his daughter and her man. He asks if Flora's wish finally came true, making the couple cringe. Fiona spills her daughter's secret. 9 years ago, Flora was devastated when Aldo left, and now she's desperately trying to silence her mom. Flora's mother explains why, recalling Flora's hours crying into her pillow. She wants Aldo to know the difficulties a mother faced calming her child. Flora covers her red cheeks as the main character smiles softly. Chuckling weakly, he thanks his fiancée for always thinking of him. Speechless, she admits she's happy too, her cheeks burning deep red. Aldo presses Fiona for the full story, making her hide her face and mumble in pure embarrassment. The father tells Fiona his daughter was so devastated even her favorite food failed, while the girl watches in terror, fearing they'll blurt out the truth. Elgis' wife says Flora, disappointed she couldn't answer the main character's flower question, asked her mother to teach her everything, which was sweet. Noticing Flora's bright red face, her mother laughs, asking to continue, but Flora begs her to stop, mortified. Her father notes Flora's resolve as she screams to finish the job. Shaking and crying, he finally loses control of his emotions. Worry grips the table. His beloved immediately asks what happened, full of worry. Trembling, he apologizes for never having a family and is just happy to see theirs, while Fiona and Elga trade worried looks. The man calms the hero, reminding him they're family now and he must rely on them. Fiona loves her new son-in-law. He starts to apologize, but Flora rushes in and pulls him into a tight hug, covering her eyes. Tears fill her eyes, but she comforts him, saying everything's fine. Aldo stands confused, unsure how to react. He grips her hand tight as tears fall. Flora promises they're safe together now, and he thanks her. Outside, the girl points to the trunks, insisting they go first. The guy nods, ready to move. Elgiz hauls a cart, offering it to Aldo for an easier trip. Aldo thanks him for the gesture. The man helps Aldo with the heavy cart. Elgis pushes from behind while the guy pulls from the front. The man leans out, telling him becoming an elder is far off, so the MC is off the hook. The head of the family also clarifies that he is not old enough to leave his post. First, the guy will need to get used to life at his own pace. Exhaling heavily, Aldo agrees and thinks about why he decided at all, why he needs to become an elder right now. Home, he thanks Elgis for help, vowing to work alone. Elgis, seeing Aldo's hard work, tells him to eat well. Karina and her crew spill everything about Aldo and Flora, then ask if he's getting married. Karina dodges their questions, mentions official permission, and wishes them luck. She heads off to cook red bear meat, offering to help. Aisha's stunned that two people who barely spoke now share a bond deeper than love or friendship. Toku figures newlyweds need furniture, and Aldo better expand the house for Flora's room. Aisha grumbles, face-palming that the inexperienced girl just sought her love advice, and now she's marrying. Horror twists her face. Aldo and Flora will have kids calling Aisha aunt. Tak doesn't get why she's freaking out. Tok scoffs at Aisha becoming an aunt. She resents him, knowing her chances are higher. He offers to make furniture for the couple, seeing demand. Aina silently watches. The fight heats up as he mocks Aisha's love life, and she fires back that he'll die alone, trading insults before even mentioning kids. Sighing, Ayana watches the couple, wondering when they'll finally date. Fiona carefully packs bags and jars into boxes, while her daughter is distracted. She turns to Flora, a long-haired girl holding a painted plate. Flora's mother tells her to take the plate, but Flora asks if she's sure since it's her mom's favorite. The woman hands her the plates, saying they'll help her make new memories with Aldo. Holding Flora's hands, her mother reminds her she always has a home to return to. Tears well in her eyes, she locks eyes with her mother, squeezing her hands harder. Mother and daughter share a tight, tearful final embrace. Their father watches from the room's corner, face hidden, silently weeping. Aldo pulls the heavy load as Flora pushes the cart, until she slips and screams. MC asks what happened as the girl peeks from behind a pile of things, claiming she just stumbled. A voice asks if they're okay. Locals offer to help with the heavy cart, but Aldo refuses to be a burden. A resident asks Flora if she's okay after a monster attack. Flora replies she's uninjured, the incident passed. But why was such a young girl deep in the forest? Flora wonders what to say. Another resident jumps in, revealing she left for the special paired flower. Villagers push the gift cart to the newlyweds' house, their help appreciated. Someone asks about the flower, but the answer is obvious now that Flora moved to Aldo. Smiling, the main character approaches his beloved and takes her hand before the crowd. Flora screams, hand to her mouth, turning to the guy. He announces he and his girlfriend will marry at the Harvest Festival. The crowd cheers wildly, but one man warns he'll end Aldo if he harms their Flora. All day, the crowd swarms the heroes, demanding answers about their wedding. Honor and Aisha congratulate the MC on his wedding. Thrilled Elgis and the others finally recognize them. He thanks the girls, explains he was too busy to tell them earlier, and finally spills everything. Aldo spots Tak approaches and hands on hips, asks if he's really getting married, alarming him. Friend laughs, shy Flora and insensitive Aldo. No one saw them getting together so fast. He instantly regrets talking about his relationship. Tok stops joking and insists the new family needs furniture. The MC considers it, but his friend is baffled. The guy proposes a house expansion, snapping the MC out of his thoughts to question why they even need it. Tok suggests separate rooms since family fights are normal, but the guy never realized couples actually argued. Dropping choral talk, his friend suggests Aldo needs his own room even with a kid. Aldo panics. Does he have to commit so soon? His friend quickly adds, baby cots are always in use. Enraged, he asks if Toku's having fun, but Toku is totally clueless. He lunges at the blonde to strike, swearing he'll still dance at his own wedding. Hearing wedding talk, a sister wonders if Toku's finally considering marriage and should offer her older sister as his bride. Aloof, Aisha sees Flora's come far, yet she still remembers those love tips. Smiling with friends, Aldo knows he can't live in peace in the capital, and he never dared imagine this. In Avalon, the king yells Barak's name, then leaps from his throne, demanding to find Aldred. He mutters that the guy left no tracks, so finding him will take time. The old man hates that answer and screams even louder. Terrified another kingdom or noble will find Aldred first, he demands they move now. Except for the Count, no one knows someone is already closing in on their goal. Karina heads north, checking her map to confirm she's on track. Picturing Aldo, the sorceress wonders if he'd be shocked or hug her. She laughs, snapping back to reality. It's impossible. Karun didn't mind. She headed back, humming a tune to herself. He heads home, climbs the mountain, and spots his house, where he's no longer alone. He opens the door and smiles, but his eyes widen like he's seeing a girl for the first time. Flora sets her mother's plates on the kitchen table, then smiles, seeing her lover. Her business forgotten, she's thrilled Aldo's back, eager for alone time away from the fuss. Clutching his heart, he blinks back tears. She asks about Aldo, and he smiles, certain he's finally where he belongs. Wiping tears, the girl smiles, sharing their hope after waiting all day for her loved one. On the sofa, they hug as Flora thanks Aldo for the move. He shrugs it off, promising he'll always be there to help. Smiling, she adds she relies on her lover, and he replies he'll also rely on Flora. Eyes met, conversation paused as Flora and Aldo reached out for their long-awaited kiss. They finally lock lips, sharing the tenderness they've missed until Flora mumbles and pulls away. She whispers 2 words, asking for the bedroom, and he understands instantly, wanting the same as his future bride. He lifts the surprised maiden, carrying her to the bedroom in an embarrassing, yet memorable moment as Flora snuggles his shoulder and he tightens his arms. He places Flora on soft sheets. She looks at his trousers questioningly. As soon as she wants to ask a self-evident question, the guy awkwardly explains that the embarrassment happened only because of a small kiss. Aldo eases the heroine's tension, telling her she needn't interact today, knowing she still hurts from that night. Flora brushes off the warning, insisting she's fine and wants to thank Aldo for helping her move. Aldred tries to object, but she stands firm. He relents, eager to test a new plan. She undresses to a tight corset. Embarrassed, she reconfirms if he'll use her Kirby forms. Propped on the bed, he promises Flora she can touch his muscles later, but as she reaches to untie her corset, he tells her to stay dressed. He grips her curves with both hands, pressing firmly to create friction. She feels the heat rising and grinds soft roundels in her hands to turn it up even more. The guy seizes, shivers violently, grips the sheets, and turns his head. Flora asks if she's doing it right, and the man gasps a yes, loving every second. Flora keeps moving as requested, and the MC begs her never to stop. Intensity spikes. The girl screams her forms are changing, but the transformation cuts her off, tearing her clothes. Panting, she groans she's burning up with her clothes shredded and Aldo finished. Exhausted from the experience, he collapses onto his pillow. As he drifts off, Flora watches him intently. Remembering the promise, she unties his shirt and feels his muscles. Flora squeaks with joy, clutching her chest. Aldo wonders if his beloved truly loves muscles, but she keeps exploring, touching, and lying on his chest. Flora lifts his hand, curls up beside him, and drifts off, overjoyed by everything that happened last night. Next morning, the young man tells the kitchen girl Aisha, and Toke arrived. Flora rushes to finish. The hero curiously peeks over the wall. In front of him, he sees very appetizing lunchboxes with various sandwiches and snacks inside. Flora smiles, admitting she went overboard, having not picnicked in ages and unsure what to cook. Gathering food, he gushes about their first picnic, his beloved just as happy. His friends wait outside as the MC steps out in a hat, greeting them. Toke notices he's glowing with joy. Flora whispers that Aldo's hyped for his first picnic. Isha finds it weird since they planned it together, while Aldo just stares off, enjoying the weather. The young man's ready to leave, but Aisha cuts in, reminding him to grab the eco-fruits. The heroes reach the fields. Under a scorching sun, endless wheat sprouts skyward. The 4 walk together, laughing and chatting, ready to start field work. Flora looks adorable in her new summer outfit, and the compliment makes her beam. She compliments his clothes, saying he looks great and fresh too. Questions keep flying as Flora asks about her hat. He calls it beautiful, so she smiles and promises an even cuter one next time. Blinded by the happy couple, Aisha stumbles and slides down. At that moment, Toke grabs her waist and asks if she's hurt. Embarrassed, Aisha walks away. Just a slip happens. The friends reach the eco-fruit tree, and Flora learns they make delicious jam. Aisha scans the tree for fruit, but Toke knows the villagers already picked it clean. Leaving food baskets, Toke suggests spreading out to find more needed fruits. The others hunt for fruit, but the MC stays back, lost in thought. Aisha notices and asks what he's doing, so Aldo calmly explains he's scanning for dangerous predators. Chuckling, the girl sees the hero instantly drop his cheerful face, asking him to stop that scary look. He points at a hollow tree, claiming ferrets are inside. Aisha and Aldo rush over to see. Actually, let's make it punchier. He points to a hollow. A ferret pops from the hollow, eyeing the guests. He explains the tree's sounds match the animal's habits, but Aisha wonders why he cares. He says this skill from his adventurer days means no worries. Watching ferrets, a voice distracts the pair, announcing the found tree. The four stand and watch as Toke spots the fruit, but they're way too high. Flora and Aisha agree collecting them is tough, and Toke sees the same issue nearby. The hero's girl asks if they should search elsewhere. The hero has a plan. He scales the trees for fruit, telling the girl he's a pro. Aldo climbed massive trees as an adventurer, so Aisha tells Flora he's a pro they can trust. He asks the girls a favor, show him the fruit tree. They agree. Climbing a tree, the hero says he'll throw the fruits, catch them with his shirt. Reaching a high branch, the hero remembers his past and pauses to soak in the view. He gathers himself and tosses the fruit to Toke, who catches it effortlessly in his shirt. Worried he'd miss, the boy defends his reflexes against Aisha, but Flora ends the fight by tossing the fruit into the basket. Aisha points to the fruits. 3 pieces lie left. The hero finds them, but hidden in bushes, fears he can't grab them. Flora spots 4 more pieces, and the boy dashes over to snatch them. Still fruits remain at the top, but everyone decides it's enough. The main character must descend. Check the other trees, don't stop at one. Toke realizes he's too high to catch Aldo if he falls. Climbing another tree, he deftly scales branches, throwing fruits into a friend's shirt, then his beloved's basket. Everyone thought the forest was barren, but Aldo's skills filled the fruit baskets to the brim. Exhausted, the 4 finally start their picnic, but Aisha spots Flora panicking about her boyfriend falling. Soon, Flora relaxes and even starts giving orders herself. She tells her friends Aldo moved so quickly and nimbly, she even had fun. Toke sees Flora's advice cheered him up. She asks if he's mad, but he just smiles. He has no reason to be. He finds her naughty side adorable, leaving her blushing and speechless. A friend asks if her mischief is genetic, but she screams it's possible, though she's nothing like her mom. Aisha leaps off the blanket, stands barefoot, and faces her friend serious. She declares it's great. Aisha rushes to hug Flora, tears in her eyes, asking if 9 years of waiting paid off. Flora's first thought, Aisha's wasted. She chugged a whole bottle solo. Aisha warns him, be careful with Flora, or she'll never forgive him for her friend's tears, which shocks and embarrasses her. Smiling, he assures the drunk girl she's safe, knowing he must protect his beloved. White-haired man licks finger, asks girl pinned in plants why she's crying, if alcohol makes her sensitive. She irritably kicks him. The boy tells her not to be embarrassed, while Flora and Aldo watch without interfering. Toke calls a drunk Aisha, barely clinging to his shoulder. One arm wraps around him, the other hangs limp. Aldo watches the unexpected sight, stunned. He tosses her onto the sofa, gasping for air after hauling her from the forest. Toke tries to calm her, but she just screams drunken gibberish, clearly proud of how much she drank. Flora grins seeing the usually sober Aisha overdrinking, while an annoyed man realizes she's been acting suspicious since hearing about Flora's wedding. He glances at his sleeping girlfriend, but his best friend's wedding sparks strange thoughts. Toke sees Aisha sleeping, irritably shouts for her to wake, but she ignores his screams. Flora awkwardly laughs, trying to calm things, suggests Aisha needs more sleep. Aldo distracts Flora, asking if eco-fruits are raw or just for jam. Flora smiles, assuring him they're edible raw. Fruit and custard sandwiches, a fresh fruit tray, and steaming tea mugs await on the table. The hero shouts, inviting all to eat. Toke smiles as Flora serves the tea. Staring at the massive feast, he drools and shouts in excitement. Mumbling in her sleep, Aisha caught the scent of tea and bolted awake in a cold sweat. She glares at the table. Furious, they started the feast without her, and demanding to know why she was left out. She stumbled to the table, head throbbing, surprised by eco-fruits. Aisha groaned about migraines, but Toke snapped back, reminding her she downed a whole wine bottle solo. The hero serves steward and custard sandwiches, inviting everyone to dig in. He then offers fresh fruit with floral syrups, hoping the girl finds a favorite. Aisha proudly shows off her colorful homemade syrups to the group. She nods, explaining exactly how to eat the fruit. Aisha stands, fork held high, as Toke and Flora smile. Delighted, she announces dinner can start, and a chorus of bon appetit erupts. He rolls an eco on his fork, admiring it before eating. Flora bites a custard sandwich with both hands, savoring every detail, while Toke stuffs a whole piece in her mouth, chewing thoroughly, enjoying. Aldo, mouthful, loves how syrups enrich fruit, especially sweet with sour. Toke, eyes closed, adds sweets beat his fatigue from carrying heavy things, then gets told to shut up. Aisha, biting fruit, confidently declares the jam tastes different. Flora, blushing in surprise, recommends combining sour ego with sweet syrup for maximum pleasure. Aldo admires the shifting flavors, while Aisha loves the sweet and sour Mari syrup. The friend praises Aldo's wife over tea, leaving Flora completely confused. She begs him to stop the embarrassment after her wedding, but Toke finds it hilarious. Boy sees girlfriend Aisha's unwell, offering her Rand syrup for severe hangovers. Immediately, questions about the syrup erupt. The young man explains the syrup's strong. It gives strength, cures coughs, isn't bitter, easy to drink, and Flora's most potent remedy. Flora is surprised by Toke's knowledge. Aisha tells him she feels better, but how does her friend know all this? Tok remembered harvesting honey with his beekeeper friend, dodging bees while learning the secrets of the craft. A loud knock hits the door and he moves to answer. Aisha begs Toke to take her to the aviary, but he shuts her down. Aisha's sister Aina storms in, hands on hips, screaming, "Is my soulmate skipping work again?" Her migraine spikes. She begs her sister to stop screaming, but Aina snaps, accusing Aisha of being drunk again. Furious, Aina screams, asking if her sister skipped work to get drunk. The girl clutches her head as Flora tries to calm the tension while Toke defends her. Aldo reveals Aisha's friend is getting married, sending her into a drunken, emotional spiral. The MC's friend argues honesty would have fixed everything, but shielding Aisha only fuels her rage. To distract, Flora approaches Aina, offering her their gathered eco-fruits to taste, making Aina question them again. A girl with her hair in a bun seats her sister and serves an eco-fruit sandwich. Skeptical, she grabs the food and takes a bite. Her sister's eyes showed she loved it, making Flora smile. Ine calls Aldo lucky for eating such delicious food daily. The sisters' plan worked. Ine finally cooled off thanks to the whipped cream trick. The girl offers another sandwich plate, saying Aldo collected tons of fruit for her sister, and she finds the main character cool. At the table, Flora praises her husband, while Toke jokes, calling his friend a monkey. The hero thinks it was easy compared to the past, nothing special. He remembers climbing way higher on past missions than when he grabbed the eco-fruits, picturing Klein's magic helping him. Whenever he fell, his companion used magic and skill to save him. She questions her impact as a teacher. She always clicked with kids as an adventurer, but now they're perfectly in sync. Old friends Keel and Elliot fill his head. He wonders where they are now. Action shifts northeast to Vespania's Legacy Village Hotel, where the former magic teacher lives. Sipping her tea, the girl overhears adventurers at the next table discussing how monsters ruined a neighboring village's grain fields, so they must complete the task. Klein smiles at the men, recalling her squad discussing the same issues: where to go, what tasks, what reward. The girl heads to the desk and asks about the route. The woman warns it's a month-long journey, even longer on foot. The sorceress hates this. She expected a faster path to Nultend, but with no choice, she must go to achieve her goal. Klein smiles, thanking the hostess as she leaves the hotel, but the Count's mercenary watches the sorceress from a wall, his face hidden by a black hood. He wonders where Dragon Slayer Aldred vanished. He's now a wanted man, while Zoke's mission is to spy on a target. To catch Aldred, Zoke must watch his former squadmate, the magician Karun, who's unaware. Recalling his surveillance, her route proves she's heading straight for her old partner. Zoke steps from the shadows behind Karun, flashing a sinister smirk. The girl suspects nothing while the mercenary hunts Aldred, eager to finish his mission. Next morning, Flora's busy weeding the garden. While she's focused, the MC silently creeps up behind her. A wicked plan forms in his head, sparking a grin as he reaches for the unsuspecting girl while she harvests. Guy covers Flora's eyes, asks who's there. Terrified, she screams, falling on him. Pouting, Flora tells him not to sneak up. Aldo laughs, wanting to see her scared face. Displeased, Flora turns away, which only amuses him more. He apologizes, takes her hand, and pulls her up. His other hand shades her straw hat from the sun. They squint at the blinding sun. He says he arrived in spring, but life flies by too fast to notice. By a bed, Flora and Aldo hold hands. She says few remain. Soon they'll pick beans and carrots. He nods, agreeing 2 weeks remain. She points to other beds, saying 3 weeks start the herb and onion harvest, then other species. The man adds autumn will come. Flora blushes, squeezes their hand tighter, and reveals a big event at the Autumn Harvest Festival. She finishes her thought. They're finally marrying this autumn holiday, and she's thrilled. She packs his hunting rations and wishes him luck. She hands her lover the bag, and he thanks her. Aldo is about to leave the house, when suddenly the girl reaches out to his cheek and kisses him loudly, with cheeks red from embarrassment. The guy is surprised by this. He touches his cheek and flinches. Flora laughs, winking and sticking her tongue out. Laughing, they meet eyes. Aldo jokingly grumbles his beloved stole a kiss. The main character's friend stands outside, griping about the morning heat, when a picture on the door catches his eye. Aldo and Flora's goodbye kiss enrages Toke, who screams that it's time to go. Clenching his fist, Toke snaps that they're always like this, flashing back to what happened at breakfast. Biting his bun, he recalls the delicious eco sandwiches and how great having a wife is. Now he wants a kind, economical, and sweet wife like Flora. He sees only his girlfriend, Aisha. Eyes wide, he chokes on his food and tries to escape the thought. Toke, the main character's friend, flees, blaming newlyweds for his state as Flora, and Aldo watch in confusion. Ina shakes her sister awake, yelling that everyone's already at the fields while she's still in bed. Aisha claims she's awake, then immediately crashes back into her pillow, driving her sister crazy. The younger sister grumbles, refusing to get out of bed, begging her sister not to leave. Anna screams Aisha will miss work today. Dragging her outside, the sister fills a basin and orders her sleepy sibling to wash up fast. Half asleep, Aisha rubs her face with soap, grumbling it won't lather. Her sister screams she's using tooth powder. The older sister quickly wipes her face with a towel. Sis puts her apron on upside down, and Ine screams it's all backward. She's scarfing breakfast while her sister screams, but her eyes are still glued shut. The younger one faceplants on the table, asleep again. Inette slows her down, demanding she gather strength. Deep in the forest, 3 deer graze, unaware they're about to become prey. He draws his bow on a deer, fires, striking true and felling his target. Sinking down before the dead animal, the guy thinks it's been a month since Flora's red bear attack. All animals fled at first, but later returned to their habitat. Small monsters followed, but were quickly wiped out. Aldo hopes the red bear stays gone and pushes forward. He spots his girlfriend Karina hiding in the bushes. She grumbles about her failed stealth, but he just grins. Her trick never works on him. Pouting, the girl gripes he's using his instincts again. Karina moved 30 meters, but it didn't help. The MC says anyone can distinguish human from animal presence. Karina's fuming, certain Aldo is no rookie after he soloed that red bear. Laughing, he tells her to stay downwind before her scent gives her away. Shocked, she asks how, but he stares into the forest and says Lauren is approaching from the north. He smiles, confirming Lauren is here. Karina misses him, so the MC decides to hunt the hidden hunter alone. Karina faces the wind, listening for sounds and catching a scent. She succeeds and asks about the smell. He tells her to check for herself, so Karina grabs pebbles and aims at the spot. 5 stones pelt the bushes, and a man screams in pain as they strike him. A hunter watches from the bushes, glaring at a couple high-fiving their successful prank. Lauren approaches, asking if he taught the girl that, but he claims he only gave advice. Laughing, Karina found Lauren by his ale smell, the wind carrying it straight to her, revealing his location. Caught red-handed, the hunter admits he ate ale and blames the wind for his bad luck. Karina stares at the MC in awe, now wielding a new skill thanks to him. He strokes her head, praising her good nose and ability to act when ready. She just needs to graduate. Then, the hunter confirms the north is clear and tells the heroes to go ahead. Suddenly he stops. It's not a monster or beast, but massive magic power. He looks up, spots Karun in the foliage, staring at the girl, shocked. This can't be real. How did the sorceress get here? Embarrassed she was caught so fast, she admits he's right. She tried to hide her presence, but failed. Surprised, he asks why Karun is here, while Karina and Lauren glance from the main character to the stranger, clueless. Karun and Aldo walk through the village as the girl marvels at the atmosphere. She stops to admire the houses, while Aldo watches her with a smile. Deeper in the blooming alley, Karun admits she gets why Aldo chose this spot, and he nods in agreement. They reach a cozy house. The girl asks if it's the hero's home. He confirms. Flora watched wide-eyed, her mind racing as she sensed something was dead wrong. Aisha's shout cut the walk short, revealing Karina's news that Aldo's ex was back. Flora froze as Aldo looked more rattled than ever. Embarrassed but excited, Karun waves at the confused guys, introducing herself as Aldo's former squadmate to kill the tension. The sorceress asks their names. Toke introduces himself as a furniture repairman. Aisha helps in her family's vineyards. Flora hides her excitement, introducing herself to her husband and boasting her father is village head as he watches with intrigue. Aisha, crossing her arms, confidently approaches the young people and declares Flora forgot something important. Flora and Aldo freeze in shock, eyes wide with confusion. Embarrassed, he looks at Flora. She blushes back, making things awkward. Karun freezes in shock, failing to grasp what's really going on between them. Aldo, flustered, scratches his head as Flora lowers hers in embarrassment. Then they announce their upcoming marriage. The sorceress freezes in disbelief, mumbling as emotions spill out. Talk says they've lived in peace since then, and Karuna reveals that after the Red Bear attack, they finally got married. Recalling the old days, the sorceress says that, before, when she went on missions with the squad, although did not even talk, he was cold and serious. Heart-to-heart communication was not his. Aisha can't imagine her friend like this, but the MC smiles, calling the talk embarrassing. Flora tells him his aura caused trouble, but she always knew he was kind. Karuna wondered if Flora and Aldo knew each other. Flora replies she first saw him here 9 years ago, aged 9. The sorceress glares at her friend, who insists her guesses are false. Tables set, dishes piled high, everyone wishes good appetite. Karun spoons soup, enjoying it as Aldo asks how it tastes. The sorceress loves the soup, claiming the capital lacks veggies this fresh. She asks Aldo if this new life is great, but he credits his friends for everything. Flora serves fresh deer Aldo hunted himself, telling the sorceress she has to try it. Stabbing meat on a fork, the magician examines it with a hungry look, then puts it in his mouth and chews carefully. Karina loves the tender, juicy meat. Flora's thrilled and offers her more. He dunks a piece in sweet and spicy sauce, says it tastes better, and takes a satisfying bite. Aisha suggests adding meat and sauce to make it better, and Karun agrees. Suddenly, she takes a massive bite and swallows it in front of everyone. Huge mistake, she chokes on a massive bite and begs for water, but the glass is empty. Toke offers the girl an empty glass, laughing as she squints from a sore throat, but Karuna steps in, promising water. The sorceress whispers a spell, summoning water, that fills Aisha's glass in seconds. In one gulp, the girl drains the glass, slamming it down, furious at Toke's joke. She scowls and calls him terrible while he laughs at his successful prank. Aisha hails Karun as her savior, but the sorceress brushes it off. Aldo asks Karun about her magic school teaching, worried she abruptly left everything. Embarrassed, the girl looks away, asking him to drop the topic. She won't rehash the past over dinner. The MC agrees to talk later. Aisha suggests magic can extract water, making wells useless. She wonders if she can do it, but Flora explains it takes a rare gift like Karuna's. Sorceress reveals everyone has a spark of magic, so anyone can master it, not by family or birthright. Karun suggests measuring the girl's magic, despite its inaccuracy, and they eagerly agree. The sorceress starts with Aisha, ordering her to stand straight. She warns Karun's magic will probe her, so she must endure the discomfort. Suddenly, light erupts around the girl, catching her. Terrified, Flora watches as Karun tells the girl to hold still. Aisha's scared, something touches her inside. The sorceress touches her shoulder, eyes shut. The calculus process sends the girl to her knees, shuddering. Flora screams in shock, covering Aldo's eyes and demanding he look away without explanation. The sorceress concludes Aisha has almost no magic. Training helps, but her potential is low. Next, a terrified Flora steps up. Flora's a nervous wreck, begging the table to look away in case the girl looks exactly like Aisha. Aisha panics over the dirty misunderstanding, but Karani quickly swears it's no big deal. Aisha closes the MC's eyes. He then closes his best friend's, outraging him as he doesn't get why he can't look. Aisha explains her body reacted naturally to Karun's touch. Flora's reacting the same way. She clenches her fists, grunts, and impatiently pulls her legs together. Flora moans loudly during her magic assessment, her face flushing bright red. The sorceress muzzles the girl to stop the weird noises. The guys stare in shock, while Aisha laughs and asks the MC if he wants to watch. Toke and the guy scream together, but Aldo crushes his friend's face, denying the impossible. His eyes snap open, staring at his beloved. He watches Sara, lips pursed, eyes closed, the sorceress's hand on her shoulder. He gapes, but his girlfriend cuts the pleasure short, saying enough. Karun reveals the results. Flora's massive mana lets her use combat magic. Flora's stunned, and the whole room is in shock. Aldo's beloved rushes into his arms, revealing she might use magic, and Aldo beams at the unexpected news. The sorceress offers to teach the girl aerial magic, becoming her new mentor. The MC realizes his girlfriend is totally into it. With puppy eyes, Flora blurts out that air magic would dry her curls faster. The guy laughs at her words, pats his beloved's head, it's so her style. Confused, Tote asks if it's combat magic, can she even use it daily? The magician watches the couple hug and smiles, feeling zero jealousy. She can't grasp this 9-year devotion. Why did Flora wait for Aldo instead of moving on? Why are they still together? Ashamed, sorceress Karun covers her cheeks, trying to banish thoughts of once imagining herself the hero's bride before this village. She turns to Aldo, glad her companion found a good man. She congratulates them on their wedding, smiling, I wish you happiness. After an old friend's blessing, Flora smiles, thanking them for their kind words. Skipping the next test, the guru lets out a scream heard far beyond the house. Sweets and showdowns. Clutching a basket of eggs, long-feathered chickens swarmed her as she asked if they were baking together. Two girls confirm the village tradition. Harvest festival brides must hand-make treats for everyone, and today is the practice run. Confused, she shuddered, eggs in her basket jumping. Soku said Karuni joins them, making her question it again. The three girls approached the house, opened the doors, and a loud thanks erupted from inside. Two girls and two guys waited inside. They were shocked Karina showed up, and her cold reply made her bad mood obvious. Karina mumbled Aldo told her to be restrained, watch her tongue, and avoid trouble. She remembered shouting to everyone Aldo's ex-girlfriend had arrived. Karuna mumbled it was her, as the girl nearby sighed that guys don't get humor. Karina bowed in apology, but Kurume just smiled and told her not to worry. Karina blushed as Karun introduced herself. Intrigued, the girl introduced herself back. Call me Karina. The girl told Karuna she was beautiful. Karuna blushed, questioning her. Karina stared at Karuna, asking if she and Aldo had nothing. The angry guy, arms crossed, already hovered over the girl. One girl yelled to Karina, she never studies. He gripped Karina's head for her crimes and grilled Karun about Elgas. She confessed and begged for mercy, later bonding with Aisha and securing a residence permit. When asked if she stayed at Aisha's, I confirmed, trying not to burden the couple, but the girls heard and turned. Embarrassed, Flora offered to start. She's cooking a ton today. Her friend smiled, already fired up. Flora clapped her hands and confirmed it with a blush. She felt this wasn't her first time cooking as a wife. Her face flushed, she closed her eyes, blushing. Her embarrassed friend smiled, telling Flora she fit the role perfectly. My neighbor wanted to mind their business, but a nearby voice wondered if help was needed. He worried. Flora smiled, yes, no men allowed. Kroon, surprised, asked, is it true? The second girl confirmed it's the bride's ceremony. The guys headed out, but Aldred looked back, warning they were still being called. The girls said it was fine. Karina asked Flora what to do. Flora, arms crossed, replied Ayana, Karina, Karuna, and she would make the dough. Flora told Aisha she'd handle the baking, and Aisha reluctantly agreed. Flora then turned, ordering Karina and Ina to mix the ingredients. Flora hands Karuna eggs and a whisk, ordering her to beat them into a froth. Karuna awkwardly asks if it should turn white. Whisk in hand, she glanced at him awkwardly, unsure of her form. As she mixed the eggs, Karun's clumsy movement sent the bowl sliding, splashing the mess everywhere. Aisha, walking not far from her with logs in her hands, watched the girl trying. A blushing Karina ground ingredients in a mortar as Ine smiled and cheered her on, busy slicing food. Flora asked Karuna about the test, but found her covered in the bowl's contents. Groceries in hand, Flora awkwardly stared as Karuna hid the bowl. Flora wiped Karun's dirty hair with a napkin. Karun apologized, believing just a little more would work. Flora told her not to worry. Karuna turned to the girl wiping her head, asking Flora how Aldo confessed. The girl blushed. Karuna smiled, unable to imagine him like that. Aisha, carrying logs, grinned, replying Flora was the first to confess. Flora turned to the girl, wide-eyed and red-faced. Karun winked, thumbs-upping Flora's bravery. Flora just stuttered. A sly, satisfied Aisha said they have a special recognition flower. Karuni leaped, screaming, what do you mean? Flora was ashamed, covering her eyes, hands red, begging them to stop. Aisha smiled, asking if that was so bad. They became a couple. Aisha winked at Kuruma, promising to explain later, while a shaking Flora screamed her name. Guys by the table turned to the house as screams blast from the street. Karun watches, smiling. Karun found capital life a shock, failing to even bake a cake. Magic was useless in the kitchen, while the other girls chatted happily. Karun needed to recover quickly. Smoke billowed from a chimney down the street as Karina clutched her cloth, drooling, delicious. Aina behind her agreed. Two guys burst in, the blonde praising the irresistible smell and asking if it's ready, startling Aisha. Hands on hips, the girls screamed for the guys to stay out. The blonde man asked if Mano was training as Aldo awkwardly scratched his head. Flora smiled, explaining it needed to cool before working. She asked them to wait. Aisha glared, telling him not to spoil them. He snapped back, but Flora was confused. They'd done great work on the furniture today. Karine, surprised, asked if he made all the furniture, noting its high quality. Karun smiled and asked to order furniture. The guy blushed, scratched his head, and agreed. Karun praised the table, calling it quality work. The embarrassed guy listened beside her. Aisha and Ine watched silently nearby. Ina anxiously watched Karun and Toko bond. What to do? My sister will hate this charming capital girl. She palmed her pale face. Aisha sniffed back to her sister. Aina panicked, certain Aisha was in shock. Aisha, unfazed, rubbed her nose, indifferently muttering, just a cold. Aina gasped, collapsing too. Aisha pushed ahead to investigate a delicious scent. Aina watched her sister, trembling on the floor as the others stared in shock. Two pies sat on the table, one adorned with orange rings. Flora held a board with two more, while Karina smiled at the treats behind her. Sliced pies and ribbons covered the table, while the couch overflowed with bags, baskets, and fabric aprons. Aldo loved the pie. Karun happily ate hers, praising Flora's tasty cooking. Aisha grinned, confirming it was all for Aldo. Flora blushed. Ina checked on Flora. Hand over mouth, the girl stared ahead, then pointed at the pieces. Not enough sugar, more spices, and it's too hard. Karun, surprised, called it delicious but not enough. Someone said they need to practice more. Aisha fumed at those words. Smiling charmingly, Flora said that she was ready to move mountains with her cooking. Aldo ate in silence, thinking to himself that in the meantime, it would be their meal. Flora and Ohm scanned the yard. Spotting a herb she needed, she hummed a tune and headed over. Soon, she was kneeling down, filling her basket with grass. Suddenly, behind the sitting girl, 5 masked figures appeared. Leaves swirled. She paled, looking down. Inside, Flora's shrill scream echoed, freezing them. Kurum shrieked in confusion as Aldo bolted past her for the exit. He ran outside, terrified, calling Flora. The intruders were leaving, carrying an unconscious Flora. Aldo stared, eyes wide with fright. Flora hung from a shoulder, unresponsive. A powerful explosion erupted. Aldo and Karun shielded their faces. Flora's battered basket flew at the hero, bouncing aside. Karun ran, yelling to Aldo what it was, as Aldo, battered from the explosion, trembled, staring ahead. He rushed forward as the girl behind him reached for him. The basket lay on the ground. Aldo grabbed her with both hands, examining her. Trembling, he gripped the object with wide eyes. He grit his teeth and shouted for Flora. She was kidnapped, and thick smoke from the blast filled the air. Flora's eyes fluttered open, dangling from her captor's shoulder. I sat up, surprised by the man. Her head snapped sideways, eyes wide. Trees blazed all around. Charred stumps spewed black smoke. The 5 kidnappers in black suits pushed through, leaving destruction and fire. She looked back in terror as trees burned to ash. Why kidnap Flora? A glowing mountain loomed on the horizon. On the mountain peak, Karuna held a magic staff glowing brightly from afar. Eyes closed, the focused girl stood, though a figure in a raincoat approached, asking for Flora. She agreed. Luckily, her massive magic power let them track her down instantly. Upset, she hung her head and mentioned one thing, so he asked what it was. Gripping her staff, the girl told Aldo Flora was terrified. He gritted his teeth and shut his eyes in grief. Korun told Aldo she'd fought this type before. He was from a Bologna's kingdom guild. She thought his name was Zoke. Aldo figures the kingdom hired them to find him, but why kidnap Flora without even making demands? Aisha and Toke rushed up, shouting for Aldo as Aisha screamed for answers about Flora. The guy turned and they gaped at his clothes. Aisha screamed for him to speak, but Toke grabbed her shoulder and shook his head. Aisha stared in shock. The hero stood silent, head bowed. She turned to Aldo, understood and trusted him. She called Aldo, he looked. Tears in her eyes, she confidently demanded he return Flora. Aldo said nothing, staring ahead wildly, ready for battle. Toke pointed, saying everything was ready, and ordered him to go. While the girls grabbed Toke, Karuna asked about Ina. Aisha admitted she sent her home to stay out of the way, alone on the... The kidnappers stopped, hanging Flora from a tree by her wrists. A massive fire roared beneath her as the 5 thugs fanned out to keep watch. Confused, the girl looked ahead. Fire raged below as a man sharpened his blade on a log. The girl confronted Zoik. Clark ordered only Aldred captured, so why bring this girl? Zoik kept sharpening his blade, ignoring her. Flora panicked, fearing Aldred was Aldo, but the man smirked. It was just a decoy to bait an A-rank adventurer. Flora's eyes widened at his words, questioning the A-rank adventurer. His companion screamed, demanding if he wanted to kill him. That's royal treason, Flora watched in shock. Grinning like a madman, Zoke stares into the flames. Survival is everything, and his magic will handle the rest. Flora trembled, eyes wide with horror. XOX partners watched in alarm as she looked down, tears welling, not knowing what to do. They want to kill Aldo. The girl didn't see Zoke. He glared down furiously, sword against her. Zoke grinned, pressing his blade against Flora's trembling throat and telling her to stop worrying about her beloved. Think about yourself first. He pressed the sword to her throat. She tilted her head back, trembling. Her eyes closed, tears streamed. He yelled she was Aldred's bait as she screamed, while a Zoic supporter watched nearby, sword drawn. Something pierced his chest. He fell back. The mage girl gasped in shock. Zoke grinned. A sharp arrow flew fast towards them. Arrows rained on Zoke's crew. The magician girl shielded herself, but a bolt tore through the hooded man's chest. Arrows rained down, striking Zoic's companion in the chest. Zoic pulled his blade from Flora's throat, shielding his head as an arrow shattered on his hand. The man drew his sword, head snapping up, bowed discarded as enraged Aldo. A shadow dove at him, sword first. Zillick, despite the threat, grinned maliciously. Blade raised, the adventurer braced for the massive explosion. The shockwave whipped Flora's hair, forcing her eyes shut. Smoke cleared, two men clashed swords. The angry hero demanded why Zoc did it. Zoc replied, to fight him again. Aldred recaptured his sword from Zoc, raising it to strike, shouting the Flora was innocent. Zoc grinned, want her back, over my dead body. Flora hung from the tree, groaning. A mage stepped from the bushes, gripping her staff. Gritting her teeth, she cast a spell as black slime oozed from her staff. Flora's eyes widened as the mage's blast streaked past her. The girl looked over as the black substance lunged for Aldo's back while he fought Zohac. Flora yelled a warning to Aldo behind her. Aldo gritted his teeth, turning back. Nearby, a glowing mass swelled, ready to explode. A loud explosion erupted, smoke blinding what happened inside. What happened to Aldo? A huge transparent dome then enclosed the blast. Tied to the tree, Flora choked on smoke and dust, screaming with eyes shut. Smoke spiraled into a vortex, revealing a massive magic circle shielding the pair. Flora's eyes shot open in shock, screaming Karan's name as a staff-wielding girl guarded the hero's back, despite him facing away. Magic circles shielded the couple while Zoc lurked behind the rocks. He fixated on the woman, peering out at the hero and the girl. Zoic shouts to his mage, making her flinch. He leaves Karun to her, and as she nervously grits her teeth, he charges ahead. Running through trees, a hero jumped from the foliage, swinging his sword at the man. Zilak grinned, expecting it. The man fired 3 blades at Aldo. He shielded his face, and the steel bit deep into his hand. The men clashed, weapons drawn. The Zoka mage blasted magic, but Kurun easily deflected the strike with a protective circle. Nervous, the magician knew she wasn't Karuna's match as the girl closed her eyes, pushed her staff forward, whispered then, staff raised, summoned many magic circles. Light flared from the circles, firing massive beams at the magician as Kurun aimed her staff. The hooded girl shielded herself with magic. Blocking the smoke, she aimed her staff at Karuna, only to realize it was broken. Karun smiled in her glowing magic circles while Zwaka's mage grit her teeth, outclassed by the power gap. Even behind a mask, the girl's confusion was obvious. Alda struck Zoic, who dodged and called it great. He asked the hero if Flora mattered so much. Shielding Flora, the hero readied his sword and glared like a beast, warning that no one touches her. The hero's sword hand sparkled. Zoic stared, surprised, as lightning magic swirled around the blade. Hero's body sparkled, his sword magically stretched, blazing with light. Zoic stared, confused. Aldo slammed his sword to the ground, vowing to protect her. The adventurer froze, staring at the blinding light, as a massive impact ripped forward in a straight line. Zox froze in shock at the approaching threat, while Kyujum and Zoka stared, jaws dropped, as a massive blast wiped out everything. Aldo's strike reduced the trees to charred stumps. Black smoke billowed toward him from a massive trench in the earth where Zoic knelt defeated. The man gaped down. He looked away, teeth clenched. The impact split the mountain behind them in half, leaving a deep, scorched pit. Zoic watched the cliff behind him, unaware the hero approached. Startled, Zoic whirled and looked up, horrified this was Arank's strength. The hero glared down. Ashes from the burnt mail and plants scattered as Aldo sliced the ropes off Flora's arms. The girl sobbed, hugging the hero and shouting for Aldo, as a worried guy grabbed Flora's shoulders. Hero apologized to her. She immediately replied it was fine, trusting he'd save her. Nearby, Karan exhaled, smiling. Holding hands, he asked if Flora was hurt. She was fine. The trio peered over the cliff as Aldo hugged Flora while she clung to him. Magician and Zoic fled them. Karun claimed they escaped, but the hero said no, giving them a message for the king. Karun asked if he'd negotiate with the king, and he agreed to stop it from happening again. Tearful Aisha ran towards them, followed by worried Toke, calling Flora. Flora calls to Aisha and they share a tearful hug. Relieved she's safe, Aisha cries while Flora apologizes for the scare as Tok watches with a smile. Aisha glared at Aldo, who just watched from Karun's side. She squeezed Tok's shoulders, glaring at the couple, demanding answers, then snapped at Aldo. Tok stared at the angry girl, confused. The hero reveals there are Bolognian thugs hunting him. Tok gasps at the massive distance, while Aisha demands to know why they attacked. The hero faced Flora, silent for a moment as she kept her gaze down. He confessed their true mission, kill A-rank adventurer Aldred. Aisha gasped, asking if Aldo was really A-rank. Beside her, Tok froze in disbelief. They turned to Karuna, who confirmed she was A-rank too. Aldo said they came here to return Flora's kidnapper, Zoke, to the kingdom. Aisha's face darkened, bangs hid her furious eyes. She demanded if they kidnapped Flora to lure him. The hero replied she was bait. Her fist tightened. Aisha flew up, punched his chin, shocking everyone. She grabs his chest, shouting that since Flora won't hit him, she'll do it for her. Some A-rank dragon slayer, he couldn't even protect the woman he loved. Karun cried, wiping tears, blaming herself that everything was wrong. If she hadn't come to Norland, none of this would have happened. The hero sadly took the blame, saying it wasn't her fault. Tak, confused, asked the benefit of bringing back an A-rank adventurer. Crying, Kurum replied that adventurers are praised by the people and influence the government. An influential figure followed Aldo to the king, earning trust and authority. Aisha snapped that Aldo wasn't an object, but Tak grinned, doubting such people existed. He asked who it was, and the hero revealed Earl Clark Raymond, the most powerful man of them all. Aisha crossed her arms, asking if they'd return. The hero sent terms, but warned if they try anything else. The hero told her he'd handle it, he wasn't going back. Flora stood silent, whined, whipping her hair and dress. Back at the house, Flora asked how Aldo suddenly appeared out of thin air. To built a catapult with Karun's magic, and the girl was impressed. Suddenly, she noticed blood on his arm, and he stared at the wound in shock. Flora bandaged his arm, wishing she could heal like Karun. He thanked her. They sat silently on the bed, she staring at her hands, he touching his injured one. She broke the silence, demanding why he hid being an adventurer. Ashamed, he revealed his adventuring past, slaying monsters, catching bandits, and fighting as a war knight, killing people. He wanted a new life without those memories. He feared her hatred if she found out. He sat with his head bowed. She admitted she feared losing him, shocking him. She leaned down, and he gripped her shoulder, calling her name to calm her and apologizing. Everything finally clicked. She turned to him with teary eyes and confessed her first love. He returned alive. She longed to share her joy, grief, and learn about him, vowing never to hate him. Aldo blushed, hearing her fishing. She asked to be with him. Tearful, he hugged her close, calling out her name. They cried together. Hugging her tight, he vowed to protect her in the village. Their eyes locked, hands on cheeks, tears streaming. Wind scattered street flowers as lovers on the bed embraced and kissed. Hero and Flora stood at the door, his fists clenched, staring ahead unsurely as Flora's hand reached for his tense one. Embarrassed, the guy shuddered, blushing as the couple exchanged glances, hands clasped. Flora smiled at him as he hesitantly raised a hand to knock, while a girl stood next to me, basket. Four sat in silence as Aldo bowed his head, avoiding the parents' eyes. Flora's father finally understood the truth. Aldo was an A-rank adventurer. Surprisingly, the man stayed calm. Guilt-ridden, he apologized for his long silence, blaming his A-rank status for Flora's fate. The man silently watched the bowed guy. The woman nearby worried. Flora also bowed her head, silent. The father eyed his daughter, then looked down, pondering. The man finally explained his silence. Flora's father told Aldo to look up, and he met his eyes with guilt. The man grinned, thanking his skills for saving Flora 3 times already. The man didn't judge. Burdened, he doubted coming alone. Dragged into the chaos, the adventurer remembered the northern flower fields and was glad he showed up. He admitted fear, but Flora and the villagers agree. He's innocent. Aldo teared up at his words. Flora's mother smiled, winked, and urged him to trust his family. He smiled, wiped his tears, agreed, and thanked them. Flora smiled at the hero, blushing and tearing up with joy. Her mother beamed, proud she was marrying an A-rank adventurer, a massive honor. He laughed, admitting he couldn't have treated him as an equal if he'd known the truth. Flustered, Aldo asked to keep things normal, but Flora clenched her fists, snapping back as she remembered his struggle. Leaning in, the mother smiled and told her husband he looked the part. She was finally talking like a true adventurer's wife, and as he cheered her on, the girl blushed. Flora blushed and begged her parents to stop while a tearful Aldo smiled. The woman asked about holiday prep, making Flora shudder. The woman gasped, admitting the end was distant, much work left. The girl put parcels on the table, offering sweets she'd brought. She handed him his daily sweets, but he smiled, already having the same. She invited everyone for tea while her mom clapped happily. Ripe grapes filled the massive field. Iana passed by with her basket, turning as someone asked Karun how long she'd keep that sour face. Hiding behind a bush, she watched the 3 talk. Karun apologized for her thoughtless act. Aisha reassured her everything was fine, yet excited Karun still worried about their friendship with Aldo. Tok smiled, understanding her. He told her not to worry, she didn't hit him out of hate. Iana gasped in shock, hearing the blow. Aisha looked at him skeptically, sighing, asking if he'd turned on best friend mode. Korn was hurt, urging them to stop. She tried to object, but Tok's hand reached for the girl. He patted her head and told her not to worry, leaving Karun blushing in wide-eyed shock. Aina watched in terror while Aisha fumed. He rubbed his head and held out a fly to explain, making Karuna blush. Aisha hid her face as the couple turned in shock toward Aina. Tok demanded answers, and Karun stood there stunned. The girl laughed. Tok helped Diana up, turned to the laughter, asking why. Aisha looked at Karun, embarrassed. Aisha awkwardly admitted Flora was so lucky. Married an A-rank adventurer, not bad. She asked where she could find one. Tok stared, confused. Karun asked if Aisha was getting married too. Hearing the news, the couple turned pale. Aisha choked while the guy's face went ghost white. Ine was moved by Karun's success. Shaking with rage, Aisha kept pressing her. Clutching his head, the guy asked why bells were ringing. Beside me, Aina was moved by Kier. He denied it and fired back, telling Aisha that Karina was better. Aina fainted instantly while Aisha seized. She screamed he said it, eyes on the body. The girl questioned Tok. Was he one of them? Someone checked on Aina. Tok screamed for Karuna's help. Later, at Flora and Aldo's, he thanked her for the courage to speak honestly. She smiled, denying it. Band-aid on his arm, he sipped water. She watched, asking about his wound. He claimed he was fine, but she doubted him, demanding to see. She checked his hand. As she groped further, he shook, laughing, tickled. She insisted she had to check everything. Light glowed from her hair. The guy sniffed, then stared. Holding his hand, she trembled. She bursts into tears. He leaps off his chair to the floor, grabbing her hands and frantically asking what happened. The girl sobbed, apologizing for being sudden. The guy held her face, confused and silent. Flora explained. Touching him makes her realize they're alive, again and again. A sad guy called out to Flora, wondering if she was truly scared. Still on the floor, he hugged her tight, vowing she'd never fear for him or her life again. Flora spent her life being protected, but now she's finally with her savior. She's determined to prove her worth and support him forever. Hand in hand, the couple walked out, smiling at each other. From a high cliff, they saw the house and people bustling below. He smiled peacefully as the wind whipped his hair. He said it felt like a dream while Flora stood beside him, smiling back. Gripping his hand, she said it wasn't a dream. He turned, tenderly declaring she'd be his wife, making him happy as she blushed and met his gaze. She gripped his hand and smiled, eyes closed. Looking ahead, she whispered it felt like a dream. He stroked her head, smiling at her words. A perfect dream. She'd start festival practice the second she got home. I need Aisha's raisins, they're the best. Karina, bow in hand, ran between trees towards a huge, tree-filled cliff. Karina's foot snagged on hidden grass. Screaming, she plunged face first into the pit. Collapsing to her knees, the girl moaned in pain before looking up, shocked. Karina stared dazed at the massive cliff she'd just fallen from into a deep pit. A huge monster appeared beside the girl, charging. She quickly dodged. Eyes wide, mouth agape, she glanced sideways at a huge boar-like monster. Steam blasted from its nose. The boar stomps the ground. Hiding in the leaves, the girl shields her head, paralyzed. When silence follows, she peeks out, eyes wide with dread. Cabana stared ahead as a light flashed on the cliff above the girl. The arrow-headed monster watched in confusion as the glow became a barrage of arrows, flying past Karina toward the boar. Arrows hit the monster. Wounded, it collapsed dead. Karina cried, looking up as two shadows loomed beside her. Two men stood atop the cliff. Karina yelled for the master and Aldred. Both men breathed heavily, staring down worriedly. Aldo bandaged Karina's ankle as she sat. Fiona's father watched silently. Clutching his head, eyes shut, he begged forgiveness for failing to protect her. Aldo turned and looked at him. Guilty, the girl's round eyes dropped as the man watched. He demanded why she went so deep into the woods alone, and the girl bowed her head in shame. Still on the ground, she looked away, claiming her new gear would catch prey as she fiddled with a broken stick and rope. Asked why she bought it, she went silent, speechless. He pressed, when, she replied, this morning before the trip. Aldo stared in confused terror, asking why she looked away and what the morning meant. Using Aldred's tracking technique she'd been watching, the man turned to a terrified Aldo, both turning pale as they stared at Karina and thought of the child. Her father sighed. He warned her hunting isn't a solo job, and buying from strangers is suicide. They could slip her anything. Confused, the girl looked down. The man said the stakes didn't matter. Aldo knew she planned to snipe him with an arrow. She learned winded demons get extremely aggressive and violent when approached, like the attacking boar. Her weak skills make landing a shot nearly impossible. The boar dodged every arrow and ignored her useless traps. Aldo warned her, demons will snipe from afar, while beasts will recklessly charge to take her down. The fight instantly turns into a melee. The girl, looking down, confessed her past. She'd cowardly fled the battlefield from an approaching demon to save her life. Hidden ropes tripped her off the cliff with him. She remembered plunging into the pit with the boar as the men gave Karina's father confused, awkward smiles. He closed his eyes, asking if she understood. She needs to be careful buying. Leave purchases unattended, accidents happen. She stared down in shame. The man awkwardly scratched his head and patted her, just glad she was safe. Upset, Karina apologized for being so stupid. Later, the men packed their bags in the forest. Karina sat nearby, silently watching. Aldo passed her, saying everything was fine. Aldo told Karina he was once young, inexperienced, and couldn't catch a demon. Young, he sought to defeat a monster, but he wasn't simple. His country considered him a sacred beast. He craved it but attacked Aldo. Villagers caught him hunting and nearly burned him alive. They tied him to a tree with torches ready, but his friends begged for mercy. Karina smiled. He had failures too. He agreed, telling her he made many mistakes. He says learning from mistakes is vital, and she agrees. Nearby, a man smiles while listening but stays out of it. He sighed and relaxed. Approaching Karina, he offered to teach her monster hunting. They must cook before the festival, so ask Aldo for help. Hunters celebrate their traditional harvest festival, feasting only on what they hunted themselves. He knew Lauren could cook, but insisted every hunter needs that skill. Aldo asks what's cooking, and the girl looks down. She says boar and mushrooms are stewing, and their mushroom rice is a huge hit. Roast beef, venison, and rabbit stew. These gut dishes pair perfectly with drinks. Fire-roasted hare is packed with nutrients, but the girl warns it stinks. Aldred suggests sand soup herbs to mask their scent, but the girl had no idea. Master's wife cooked her a delicious snow rabbit and jam dish, but the man corrected her, calling it not a hunter's meal. He asked about the jam, couldn't imagine its taste, then scratched his head, finding the northern local dish too sweet. Karina happily adored him, pleased by the memory. He remembered they make dried meat. Karina said monster meat makes an unusual dish, so she gave her all today. He smiled. The men snapped toward the girl, who hung her head in distress again. She thought her mentor was just annoying, but today she realized his advice was vital. Then, he asked if he was being too pushy. She promised her best and begged me to stay, leaving Lauren unsure if it was an apology or an insult. Karina thanked Aldo for his protection and apologized for the trouble, but he only cared that she was safe. She admitted she caught something too, then handed him her bag and told him to hold his wedding gift. Embarrassed, the guy grabbed the bag. Lauren stared surprised. So that's it. Confused, the girl shut her eyes, face flushed and bowed. Lauren and Aldo grinned at the bag, asking if it was a turkey. They praised Karina's work as a beaming Aldred thanked her. Flora would be thrilled, and the girl watched him with pure admiration. She beamed, thrilled he loved the gift. Lauren mentioned her charbai, as turkeys are rare in the northern woods. Aldo eyed the man. The man descended, calling Karina. She watched him bend, hands back, urging her to climb. The girl stared, surprised. Lauren smiled but noted her struggle to walk. The girl stared wide-eyed as Karina asked Aldo to carry her, leaving Lauren stunned. Aldo hoisted the girl onto his back and moved on. She giggled happily as confused Aldo looked ahead. Behind them, Lauren menaced, seething. Karina asked Aldo to catch a red bear so she could make jam for the holiday's main dish. Lauren shouted at Karina, trying to shame her, but Karina was amused and unashamed. Lauren scoffed at the brat. Karina laughed, shouting it was starting and pointing Aldo forward. He just stared back, confused. Aldred charged forward to the girls' cheers as Lauren sprinted after them, shouting not to leave their elder behind. Aldo, Flora, Isha, Toke gaped in surprise. Isha asked if the two-story house was too big. Not even the magic room was this big. Karina waved them welcome, explaining the palace once housed aristocrats. Embarrassed, she thanked them for the help. Everyone agreed. Cleaning this palace alone is a nightmare. Flora handed confused Karina a simple gift for her move. Karina thanked her, but Flora insisted no thanks were needed. They just came to help. Flora pointed to Aldo's basket, announcing they brought bento for everyone to share. Karuna stepped aside, letting them pass. They followed her into the massive house, marveling at its interior until they stopped at the long corridor stairs. Flora, awed by its size, asked about the rooms. Aisha, surprised, called him cool. Talk, confused, asked if they'd clean it. Everyone but Flora lost hope seeing the massive workload, but Karina screamed at them to man up since they hadn't even started. Karina offers the mansion's massive bath as a thank you for today. Aldo blurted about bathing. He remembered searching for a home, just wanting a bath. Aisha shuddered at him. She screamed to swim, but Karina promised fun after cleaning. Aisha teased Toke as he tied a handkerchief on his head and looked back. She grinned, his headscarf looked great. She asked if he'd be a janitor. He smiled, yes. It looked awful on her, she looked like a gardening grandma. Toke and Aisha crossed mops behind them, glaring. while Stretch beside them didn't care. Aldred looked ahead. Flora stood with her back turned, gripping a hairband in her teeth as she tied her hair and wrapped on a scarf. He turned beet red, staring at her. Flora smiled and asked what was up. Love-struck, the guy praised her hair, making Karun wag her tail and ask if she'd look cute in a ponytail too. He ignored her, dryly replying, "It suits you too," then moved on to Klein, an angry Karun trailing. Aldo opened the window, smiling as he leaned on the frame, admiring the beautiful landscape of trees and mountains. Flora hands Aldo the brush, stunned by the endless windows. With rooms this huge, they'll be here all night scrubbing until it shines. Karun asked the toque to plan furniture after cleaning. He agreed, grabbing measuring tools. Brush outstretched, Aisha called Karun, unable to reach her wand and needing help. Karun agreed but asked her to wait, when Takaka, standing nearby, declared he could. Karuna stepped into the hall and asked Aldo for rags. He said yes and told her to wait. The guy handed Flora rags. She questioned how they'd wash the ceiling with them. Aldo had the guys circle up and watch. Karun cast a spell to bring her thoughts to life with telekinesis. Rags from her hands soared. Rags flew to the ceiling, shocking everyone but Aldo. Aisha watched skeptically, calling the scene surreal. Rags stuck to the palace ceiling, scrubbing away the grime. Floris realized they were cleaning. Tak saw it, confirming it. If her magic's so convenient, why call them? The girl faced him. She'd clean with magic, but she can't control multiple objects yet, leaving some spots messy. Magic has limits, someone confirmed. Flora admired the ceiling, calling them cute caterpillars. Karuni neared completion, yet the rags cleaned the ceiling autonomously. Flora masked her face, then brushed dust from every surface. Dust-caked walls made Aldo choke and feel unwell. Surrounded by dust, Tak sneezed violently, sending clouds through the open window like smoke. He needed his forearms, grumbling he'd only used a broom, but his hands were already tired. Flora and Aldo arrived with rags and water. Aldo ordered them to clean, leaving Toke stunned. Toke leaned over the railing and asked Karun to clean the floor with magic, but she snapped that she couldn't. Smiling, Flora urged one last push for the Karun school. The moved girl below called Flora, eyes wide. The guy walked a rag along the stair railing, looking ahead. He bent down, asking if she needed a sign so people would understand this was a magic school. Aisha agreed, noting zero magical energy here. Karun questioned it while the guy sketched in his notebook, asking what sign she wanted. He showed them a notebook sketch, but the girls instantly called it terrible. He drew another. Karun narrowed her eyes, asking if she was in it too, because then no one would come near them. She decided it was too early for the sign, telling him to arrange seating for 10 people instead. He showed her another sign, asking what she'd do if 20 or 30 came. She needed one. Irritated, she told everyone to ignore him and Klein, but she listened to him, the fool. The group cleaned in silence. Aisha scrubbed the door while Aldo and Flora handled the windows and floor. Karun smiled, watching her friends tackle the massive room. Karin told Toku to place student chairs and tables. Aisha faced the couple. Flora and Aldo locked eyes, joking about needing baby chairs and a kid's room while Aisha watched from the side. Toke and Karun agree to hang boards, while nearby, Flora tells a rushing Aldo to slow down on the baby bed. Aisha dismissed it. Flora and Ard are a couple, it's fine, but these two also act like a couple. She clutched her heart, faking an attack. Why the chest pinch? Blushing, she hid her face behind her palm. Why did her heart feel heavy seeing them? She watched Toke and Karun, breath heavy. Smiling, she knew it was a heart attack. The girl looked exhausted just thinking. Soon the palace stairs and walls sparkled, and the second floor looked brand new. They cheered, hands high, celebrating the finish as Flora clapped for joy. Aisha smacked the drooling guy in the crowded bathroom, demanding he wait, then suggested rock, paper, scissors to decide who went first. They asked Flora to fight or negotiate, but since she wouldn't force it, they followed her lead. Toke and Aisha face off to see who hits the bathroom first. Flora gazed admiringly, fists clenched. Karun noted the huge bathroom. Aisha agreed, saying you could swim in it. Karun declared it perfect for a good wash. The girls splashed water as Aisha spotted Flora and yanked her towel off. As the cloth fell, everyone stared in total shock. She groped the girl, noting her growth. Surprised, Flora called Aisha, who then summoned Karun. Flora said it hinders her. She wants a beautiful body like theirs. Karuni glared at her, saying she'd want her problems. Aisha said to punish her for greed. Girls raged in the bathroom as Flora, tearful and embarrassed, retaliated. The guys stood outside. Tak drew in his notebook, but Aldo, hearing bathroom sounds, sharply turned to the door. Soon the guys hit the bathroom, emerging satisfied and instantly feeling better after one remarked on its massive size. The girls waited. Karun thanked them for today, apologizing for going to the bathroom first. Flora offered food. Karun apologized for eating on the floor, but Tak didn't mind. Aisha then claimed the bathroom gave her a heart attack, leaving Tak totally confused. Aldo notices Flora's dry hair. She reveals Karuna used magic to dry it. Karuna watches as Flora hands over crispy, double-fried sandwiches. Toke and Aldo scarfed their food. Aldo told the girl the mustard oil adds a unique kick, and he's right, it's delicious. Tak told Karuna he was confident her school would succeed. She happily replied kids were already asking about her. Everything's fine. Karun thinks magic isn't just for fighting, but daily life. Flora even uses it to dry her hair. Aisha got into the new Karun school. She screamed, raising her glass as her laughing friends raised theirs. Flora smiled, offering more help. Karun blushed, looking down, then asked to call her Flora. She names her Karun. Flora blushes in shock as Aldo smiles and the girl beams, saying Karun loves it. Laughing together on the floor, these five became best friends. Karun called everyone, asking ready. She pointed at a massive tree, declaring it their blackboard. Shocked, Toke questioned her while the others cheered. This tree was becoming magic school furniture. She then asked why they thought she brought them here. Confused, Tak asked his friend what to do with him. Aldo flinched at Tak's face. Frightened, Karun pointed at the tree again, asking if they could make furniture. Tak eyed the. Tak, remembering their urban life, warned, furniture wood takes years to prepare, or it cracks and warps. She begged with puppy eyes to cut the tree down. Tak paled, staring back with the exact same expression. He sighed and gave in, asking if they wanted to chop down the tree. He told them to wait while he grabbed his tools, wondering why these city folks were so desperate to cut the tree. Behind him, the pair cheered with massive smiles. He gave the girl the axe. She thanked him, then put it behind her back, leaning under his weight as the guys watched excitedly. She swung her axe at the tree, but it did nothing and she quickly tired. Aldo encouraged her from behind. She swung back, yelling he was too heavy, and her axe slipped from her grasp. The instrument sped at Toke, who watched wide-eyed. As the blade neared his face, the hero grabbed its handle, stopping it. Shocked, Toke paled, motionless, as the hero casually asked Karun if she was exhausted, then laughed, claiming he was. Chuckling, he eyed the tree, gripped his tool tight, and hit the target. Lightning surged through the plant, instantly splitting the tree in half, stunning the two behind. Girl praised him, he did well. Nearby, Toke trembled, muttering he broke a 60-year-old tree with one blow, yet confidently said it was enough to board. Evil Toke behind him yelled, "What?" Furious, he snatched the axe to do it himself. The girl called him a carpenter, Toke, and asked him to chop down trees for furniture. Thuds echoed from the forest as Toke expertly struck his axe, a couple watching. He swung, focused intently, clearly a seasoned pro. His friends gaped as the tree shook, and he shoved the massive trunk aside, sending it crashing down perfectly intact. The girl praised Toke, and Aldo marveled at his speed. Toke exhaled, pride written across his serious face. He wouldn't be a carpenter if he couldn't handle the job. He asked if this was easy for an ex-adventurer, but Aldo said not a chance. He'd bought all city furniture, so after cutting the tree, Aldo realized he had no use for it. Toke explained that to be a carpenter, one must find, cut, and sometimes grow trees for furniture, but he doubts the city worker can learn it. Karun says logging and crafting furniture is his dream life. Embarrassed, he scratches his head and asks if she agrees. She asked what's next, and he told her they'd cut the tree and dry it for years. The hero's shocked by the long timeline, but the girl confirms the wait. Even with the tree, it won't be ready for 2 more years. The guy said to remove insect damage and match board color and size. Only then is the tree furniture ready. Aldo saw Toke's serious furniture passion. She added that's why it costs so much. At the workshop, they start picking boards. The girl hums, grabbing exactly what she needs. Her eyes widened at the perfect find. She grabbed a board for their new blackboard, noting the wood works for chairs and tables too. Aldo grinned at the solid board, while Toke asked if the bulletin used the same material. She handed him the board. Toke eyed her strangely, asking what was wrong. He ran his palm over the wood. It was still wet. You need to steam dry it. Steam drying just makes them wetter. Toke explains they're soaked in juice, not water, but they can vaporize it. Karun realized she could generate the heat, water, and pressure for steam drying. Toke gasped, asking how long the magic takes to dry. The girl suggested stacking the boards to speed it up. They dragged boards outside, stacking them with gaps. Once ready, Toke asked if it was good. The girl stood nearby, holding a magic wand. He agreed, but noted a higher build would trap more heat. Magic flared from her staff. Eyes shut, she cast a spell to force fire and water to merge. Elemental whirlwinds blasted from her staff, slamming the boards and engulfing them in steam. Still using the spell, she asked the guy how many to dry. He pointed at the board, saying to finish when cracks double. She asks if the cracking is normal, but he explains it proves the wood is ready. Since they're only on the edges, everything is fine. The tree cracked, then widened. The guy called it great enough. He ordered her to cool down. Steam billowed from the wood as Tak grabbed the top board. He slammed the wood, perfect, like a pro adventurer. She awkwardly admitted she just followed his orders. Waving Aisha and Flora, basket in hand, approached the trio, who turned. Aisha waved as she approached, shocking her friend who recognized her and Flora. Flora brought food. Karun cheered, starving after the sorcery. Tak asked the girl why she came. Aisha snapped for him to shut up. It wasn't for him to see. Flora explained she helped pick a harvest festival dress. Later in the workshop, Tok sat drawing thoughtfully in his notebook. The four guys stood in the doorway, silently watching him. Karuni spoke first, saying Tok was incredible, cutting a tree so fast. Aisha smirked, asking if felling trees seemed incredible. Karuna awkwardly covered her mouth, admitting they couldn't cope. Aisha stared strangely. She sighed, shocked he's her age and already a skilled trader. Aldo confirmed it. While house hunting, he learned the carpenter is the most trusted man in the village. Soon believed him, but Aisha refused to praise him, giving only a cold maybe. Everyone looked at him again, calling out, "Time for a break." He understood, just a second to finish, then rest. Flora and Aldo turned and left, leaving the girls alone. The girls kept looking ahead at the guy in front, his back turned as he worked. Karun praised his dedication with adoring eyes, while Aisha watched stone-faced. She watched him work with a blank stare until her cold eyes suddenly melted into pure adoration. Her admiring look faded, but her eyes still sparkled as tea dripped from her mouth. The couple watched her worriedly, and when Flora asked if she was okay, Aisha choked on her tea. Nervously wiping tea from her chin, she agreed, then changed the subject, asking who'd be the Harvest Festival's main princess. The girl kept wiping her flushed face, embarrassed. Karun giggled softly while Aldo looked at Flora, not understanding. Karun gushed the Harvest Festival is 3 days away, calling a wedding their pure romance. It's her first Harvest Festival, so she doesn't know the fun. Ard was asked to hunt, but he immediately replied he'd be busy. Flora happily announces the sweets are ready, but Karun and Aldo freeze in horror, knowing the nightmare isn't over. Guys at the table laughed, talked as Tok worked in the next room, doors open. Still blushing, Aisha turned her back while Karun giggled and munched on sweets. On stage, the man thanks the crowd for the massive Harvest Festival, telling everyone to hit the tents and have a blast. He suggested a new gate where brides and grooms stand for good luck. Flora and Aldred stood in wedding costumes. Villagers shouted blessings for a good harvest, thanking and wishing for one. Karina, Karuna, and Aisha cheered as Flora and Aldred shared a laugh in their wedding dresses. The crowd cheered for the three couples, wishing them many children, as a voice yelled to seal the alliance now. The residents agreed, but their eyes quickly darted toward the suspicious activity on the sidelines. A nearby couple kissed as the crowd roared. Aldo watched in shock, then turned to Flora, who stood there covering her eyes. Red-faced and trembling, Aldo lifts Flora's veil. Her eyes closed, lips puckered, she waits for a kiss. He kissed her as the crowd roared. Flora's father thanked everyone, promising a bright future for all. Behind him, Aldo and Flora stood blushing hard. Ceremony finished, the couple roamed the festival as Flora's mom praised them for showing up. The woman smiled, praising their progress and announcing gift time. Karina stepped forward, holding up her basket of sweets. Crowds swarmed the festival stalls as newlyweds led with baskets, the other girls trailing behind. Flora asked Aldo if he knew the tents were split into sectors, pointing out the winemakers here and the cheese makers on the other side. Aisha looked away as Karun focused on the girl, suggesting they bypass everyone. Flora agreed. Friends approached the winemaker's tent, passing barrels of grapes and wine. Villagers handed the couple treat baskets before they hit the cheesemaker's tent. Sellers handed them treat baskets. Tables overflowed with cheese samples. Aldo and Flora grabbed a bite and explored every tent. Though asked for forgiveness, Tok recognized him, calling his name. Approaching the couple, Tok declared it a blessed harvest day, asking to thank them for participating. The couple thanked people for gifts until the onlookers turned. Aisha stood confused. He questioned her horse outfit, but she retorted, "You're always in dirty rags." They glared, ready to brawl. I didn't call her sister as Karina and Karun watched them revert to their old habits. Then he waved everyone away. Karuni forked a bite, praising the tender meat. Lauren laughed, asking if it was his signature recipe, then urged her to eat faster. Lauren scored a rare, high-quality catch. The meat's tough, but fruit and honey will fix it. He still can't believe his luck. Karina looked at the man, asking the master if he was hurt. He denied it, saying he only cut himself. The man yelled he'd tired them out. Someone replied, "I'd say the same." Karina called Aldo her master. The angry man asked again. Others laughed. Flora's mom told the couple they'd greeted everyone, Aldo agreeing. She apologized, saying it was time to go. The newlyweds needed rest for their wedding night. Once they finished the tents, she must escort them back. Aldo grumbles in frustration, while Karina happily devours meat in the back. Flora offered a basket. A surprised Karun asked why she owed them a favor. Aldo thanked them, and the girls invited them back next year. Karina finds a cupcake and cookies inside. Treats from a couple blessed during the great harvest bring ultimate luck. Karun snarked about unmarried girls. Aisha eyed the bag, thinking its owner blessed. Remembering Toke, her face reddened as she denied it, feigning disgust. They climbed the hill away from the festival. Flora tripped, but Aldo caught her. He asked about a strand, but she just snagged her foot on her dress. He swept her into his arms, laughing when she asked if she was heavy. They finally arrived home. He carried her inside and set her down. She thanked him with a laugh. Flora called Aldo, and he looked back. She hugged him tight, eyes closed, declaring pure happiness. He blushed. He finally hugged back, echoing her joy. Cupping her cheek, he kissed her. As they pulled away, he ducked under her wedding dress, shocking her. Embarrassed, she screamed, begging him to at least take off her dress.